Chapter 3803. Zichen's words were definitely not baseless. Everyone had walked for so long and experienced so many dangers, so they still had the most basic trust in each other. Originally, they were very puzzled. They clearly did not leave any traces, so how did Luo Long know that they were the culprits at Mount Garuda? Moreover, he knew everyone's purpose. Now, they had an answer to their doubts. "I didn't say that. You're slandering me," Yi Yuan shouted. Zichen smiled coldly. "Actually, what you really want to say is how I know so much, right? It's actually very simple. It's been secretly following you, and your concealment skills couldn't escape its eyes." Yu Gui flew to Zichen's shoulder. It was only the size of a palm. It looked at Yi Yuan, its intelligent eyes full of mockery. After seeing Yu Gui, Yi Yuan could not say a word. This was because every time he moved, he felt a pair of eyes watching him in the dark. However, every time he turned around, he did not find anything. He always felt that it was just an illusion. Only now did everyone understand why Zichen had such great enmity towards Yi Yuan. So that was the reason. Lan Hongyi looked back at Yi Yuan and said angrily, "You used our spoils to make a deal with us, and we didn't argue with you. We even helped you get revenge. It's fine if you don't feel grateful, but you actually want to kill us. Are you still human? Do you really think that we can't find that place and need you to lead the way?" Yi Yuan did not speak. At this moment, his heart was like dead ashes. He thought that his plan was flawless, but who would have thought that the other party had seen through everything? "Why? Since you already knew, why didn't you stop me?" Yi Yuan asked. There was no point in quibbling now. "The first time, I really wanted to help you get revenge. Of course, that is if those people were really your family. The reason why I kept you by my side was to see what your purpose was. In the end, it was natural that I wanted to kill Luo Long. Even if it wasn't for the deal between us, it should be for the other innocent people who died, as well as the people he might cause to die in the future." Yi Yuan said, "So you're really doing it for justice that doesn't exist? You're really a weirdo." Zichen said, "Whether justice exists or not, I'm not sure. But if the road is uneven, someone has to step on it. If it's as easy as lifting a finger can make someone else's life better, then why not?" Yi Yuan said, "In that case, you are one of the rarest good people in the world. Although I did scheme against you, you didn't lose anything. Are you willing to give me a chance to start over?" The corners of Zichen's mouth curled into a smile. "Sorry, I've never considered myself a good person. Because the number of people I have killed in my life is more than the number of people you have met. So, do you have any last words before you die? You are very smart, brave, and resourceful, but unfortunately, you can't kill me." Yi Yuan's figure disappeared into thin air. It was as if he was invisible. Astonishment appeared on the faces of the others. Old Tang was still smiling. Oyu Li had a look of surprise on his face. Zichen's gaze began to move, and his eyes gradually turned cold. A cold killing intent burst out from his eyes. The long staff in his hand lit up, and a portion of the patterns on it also lit up. A powerful aura was released. Just like how he had fought with his full strength before, Zichen had also unleashed his full strength. Buzz! The long staff in his hand left his hand and turned into a ray of light that shot forward. There was nothing there. In the next moment, a ripple flashed, and Yi Yuan's figure appeared. He slowly turned around and looked at Zichen, whose eyes were cold, and said, "So you can see me." Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his body fell back. The long staff had completely pierced through his heart, destroying his life force. This was the true end of everything. The ground was littered with corpses, and there were 4 Soul Realm experts. Zichen said, "Clean up the battlefield." Noah moved. This was something he was good at. Lan Rui took the blue sword, and as for the defensive armor, it was given to Lan Hongyi. It had to be said that the quality of the soul weapons given by the family this time was very high. According to their contributions, it was impossible for them to obtain them. The reason for this was, of course, deliberately done by Lan Kangmang's lineage. After all, after the matter was completed, these 2 soul weapons would become their things, and they would naturally be able to use them. However, They did not expect that the mission would fail, and the weapons that they deliberately used would be taken advantage of by Lan Rui and Lan Hongyi. After cleaning up the battlefield, Noah looked at Zichen and said, "Where are we going next?" This time, without waiting for Zichen to answer, Lan Rui said, "Let's return to Luowei City." "Luowei City? We killed their city lord, can we still go back?" Noah said in confusion. "It's precisely because of this that we have to go back. Luowei City has no leader, and they need us to garrison it," Lan Rui said decisively. Ou Li's eyes were filled with admiration. This was the bearing that the heir of the Lan family should have. "Let's go back," Zichen also said. This time, the Luo family suffered heavy losses. Luowei City was going to change today. And the biggest beneficiary was the Lan family. He thought of old Tang's previous actions and felt that his thoughts were too simple. After cleaning up the corpses, the group began to return. At this time in Luowei City, Lan Haoshuo was anxiously waiting for the news, and his heart was very nervous. Even though they had reviewed the matter countless times, after the matter had really happened, Lan Haoshuo's heart still could not calm down. Suddenly, a faint voice sounded from outside the room. "What are you waiting for?" Hearing this unfamiliar yet somewhat familiar voice, Lan Haoshuo's expression could not help but change as he turned his head abruptly. A person was standing at the door. It was an extremely dignified middle-aged man. With one look, one could tell that he was an existence that had been in a high position for a long time. "Lan. Enforcer." Lan Haoshuo spoke. His voice was hoarse, and cold sweat kept dripping down his cheeks. In the Lan family, there was an enforcer team that was responsible for the internal affairs of the Lan family. The leader of the enforcer team was Lan Tianju. It was said that he was once the strongest contender for the successor of the previous family head. Although he was regretfully defeated, he still received the position of leader of the enforcer team. Although it did not sound as high as an elder's position, Lan Haoshuo was very clear that the other party had the right to directly kill an elder. In addition, Lan Haoshuo also knew some information that others did not know. For example, the leader of the enforcer team in front of him had a daughter who was very beautiful and extremely talented. She was one of the few geniuses in the Lan family whose potential was not affected by the appearance of the fairy. Chapter 3804. Cold sweat dripped down his cheeks. Lan Haoshuo's face was full of fear. The other party suddenly came here for something. Perhaps it was because of the trap they set up. Did they succeed, or did they fail? If they succeeded, he might still have a chance to survive in the next family game. If they failed, then he was completely finished. Thinking of this possibility, his heart was filled with endless fear. Lan Tianju looked at Lan Haoshuo and said, "Can we discuss something?" Lan Haoshuo, who was sweating profusely, said with a sad face, "Sir, please speak." Lan Tianju said, "Can you not die?" Lan Haoshuo's body trembled, and his heart was like dead ashes. Lan Tianju continued, "Don't die, can you be my witness?" Lan Haoshuo was in despair. He knelt down, "Sir, please spare my life. Please spare my life." Lan Tianju said, "Your life will definitely not be spared. If you cooperate, your family's lives can be saved. Their future life can't be said to be the best, but at least it won't be bad. Thank you, sir." Lan Haoshuo knelt on the ground. It was enough to have Lan Haoshuo's words. Luowei City changed. Before Lan Rui and the others returned, the situation had already changed. In a single night, the Luo family's enormous property was completely controlled by a mysterious power. All those who tried to resist were forcefully exterminated. This force seemed to know all the business of the Luo family. They didn't let go of any one of them, big or small. At the same time, the roads controlled by the Luo family were all destroyed in a day. Those who killed people like Flax on a daily basis met an even more murderous existence today. No one was left alive. The person who came didn't need a confession. Lan Haoshuo stood at the window and looked at the bustling city. On the surface, it looked the same as usual. In fact, under the bustle, the whole city was in the midst of war. Today was destined to be recorded in history. All of this originated from his cooperation. He provided the information. Of course, This information was no longer the kind used to deal with Lan Rui. It was the most accurate. Now this is a real scheme. Lan Haosho laughed bitterly. At this moment, he finally realized what had happened, and it was too late for regrets. The successor of the Lan clan is here. How can the Lan clan let him do as he pleases? Lan Haosho, who had suffered a crushing defeat, smiled bitterly and said, "This scheme should have already started when the information was sent to the family, right? Third elder wants to destroy the direct line of descent, but how could the direct line of descent not want to get rid of the other party? But what does your fight have to do with me?" After realizing this, Lan Haosho felt very wronged. But so what? He didn't see the situation clearly and joined the losing side. Now, he could only wait for death. Lan Kangmang flew back to his family. At this moment, his heart was ice cold. His plan had failed. That Earth Soul Realm old man didn't leave him any leeway and just turned around and left. Damn it. He was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He could only go back and see how to solve this matter. The only thing he was glad about was that such a thing had happened. He could completely push the blame to the Luo family. After all, those who deserved to die were all dead. If it really didn't work, he could push the blame to Lan Haosho. He believed that Lan Haosho wouldn't dare to disobey. Lan Kangmang, who was moving forward, suddenly stopped. A person appeared in front of him. It was an old man in a black robe, standing there indifferently. The moment he saw the old man's face, Lan Kangmang's face changed drastically. He cried out in surprise, "Steward Wu, why are you here?" Steward Wu was the personal steward of the Lan clan's patriarch. He had served the patriarch for many years. Although he didn't have the same surname, he was one of the few important figures in the Lan clan. The old man said, "Young Master Kangmang, are you going back to the clan? This old servant will bring you along." "No, I'm not going back. I'm not going back." Lan Kangmang kept shaking his head. If he went back with Steward Wu, it would be completely over. Steward Wu smiled and said, "That's not up to you, young master." It had been a long time since the title young master had been used. It could be traced back to many years ago when Lan Kangmang was still a child. He played and cultivated with Lan Tianchu, Lan Tianyu, and the others. At that time, the steward was like a kind elder. It wasn't until he became sensible that Lan Kangmang realized that this old man was a powerful Earth Soul Realm expert. However, wasn't there someone specially assigned to watch the experts on the patriarch's side? Why didn't anyone remind Steward Wu when he left the clan? The smile on Steward Wu's face disappeared. Once the smile on the kind old man's face disappeared, it meant that he was no longer kind to others. Boom! The old man's aura surged, as if a lion had awakened. His aura was as vast as the ocean. Lan Kangmang's eyes widened as he watched the violent energy wave sweep over in despair. Then, he, who had the strength of a human soul realm expert, was knocked unconscious. The violent energy dissipated. Steward Wu looked at the unconscious Lan Kangmang with an extremely cold gaze. "If we can't protect young master, where can we put our old faces? We will definitely not let the same tragedy happen again." Steward Wu brought the unconscious Lan Kangmang back to the clan. Just like the huge earthquake in Luowei City, the Lan clan was also in turmoil. However, in front of the absolute power of the direct descendants and the Lan clan, this turmoil was like a surging wave. Although it rose high, after it fell, there were no more waves. Zichen's group returned to Luowei City. It was the same as usual. The group walked towards the inn. The shopkeeper, Guotong, was already waiting at the entrance. When he saw them, he immediately came forward to welcome them. Usually, when he saw Zichen's group, he was also very enthusiastic. However, today, he was overly enthusiastic. "We're going back." Ou Li looked at Zichen and said, "If you have time, go to the noodle house." Zichen nodded and cupped his fists at the two of them again. After returning to the inn, Zichen realized that there were no customers on the first floor. This was very different from the usual bustling business. Could it be that there was danger here? Zichen's mind moved slightly. Lan Rui said, "Did someone from the clan come?" Guotong nodded repeatedly and said, "Yes, many people came." The city looks calm, but it's in chaos. The city lord's mansion has been surrounded. Now, only entry is allowed. Guotong pointed here and said, "This place is only open to the Lan clan." "Oh right, there's a big shot from the Lan clan guarding this place. He wants you to look for him in his room when you return. It's on the top floor." "Got it." Lan Rui and Lan Hongyi walked towards the top floor to meet the big shot from the Lan clan. Chapter 3805. When Lan Rui saw the so-called lord, he was very surprised. Then, he smiled. "Father, why are you here?" Lan Hongyi shouted excitedly. She didn't expect the person to be her father. "Second uncle." Lan Rui also shouted. "Although I knew you would be fine, I'm still very happy to see you return safely." Lan Tianju walked forward and patted Lan Rui's shoulder. Then, he rubbed Lan Hongyi's head. "Father, you knew we would be in danger?" Lan Hongyi asked. "This is a trap, or rather, a trap within a trap. I believe that we will be the ones to break the trap in the end," Lan Tianju said confidently. "In that case, Ou Li and Old Tang were also arranged by you, father." Lan Hongyi jumped up and patted Lan Tianju's shoulder. "Father, you're good." This time, Lan Tianju was stunned. "What Ou Li? What Old Tang? Wasn't Uncle Wu protecting you? Grandpa Wu?" Lan Hongyi said in surprise. "We didn't see him." Lan Tianju frowned and said, "What happened in the middle? Tell me in detail." Without needing Lan Rui, Lan Hongyi vividly described the entire incident. "You don't know this, but he defeated Luo Wei, who could fight Lan Rui to a draw, with a single strike of his staff. He killed a human soul realm expert with a single stroke, and then killed another with a second stroke. And his holy talisman also killed her." Listening to Lan Hongyi, who was very excited, Lan Rui's eyes changed. In his sister's description, he seemed to have become a passerby. Fairy and the others didn't have any scenes. Only he was the main character and was in the limelight. Lan Tianju chuckled as he listened. As for what he was thinking, only he knew. In the end, it was Zi Chen who used a powerful move to kill the city lord of Luo Wei City and save everyone. He killed 4 human souls alone. The smile on Lan Tianzhou's face froze. He was very surprised. He looked at Lan Rui, who nodded. Although there were elements of exaggeration and beautification, what he said was not a lie. However, his sister didn't mention the miracle stone. Clearly, she wanted to hide this for Zi Chen. This was interesting. Could it be? Longrue's mind moved slightly. After that, Lan Hongyi told him about Ou Li and Old Tang. She also mentioned that the two of them were Zi Chen's friends. When Blue Sky Curse learned that one of them was the owner of the noodle house and the other was a customer, he became suspicious. "I don't care who they are, as long as you come back safely." Blue Sky Curse looked at Lan Hongyi and said, "You go rest first. I have something to discuss with Rui." "Okay, Dad. You must meet that Zi Chen. He has saved us many times," Lan Hongyi said. "All right, I'll go and see young Master Zi Chen later," Blue Sky Curse said with a smile. After Lan Hongyi left, the smile on Blue Sky Curse's face disappeared. "What's going on?" Lan Rui said, "The truth is not far from what little sister said." "Who exactly is that Zi Chen? How could he be so powerful?" Blue Sky Curse asked. Longrui shook his head and said, "We just met the two of them by chance. As for why they helped us, I don't know. As for Zi Chen, he was the one who escorted the fairy back. At that time, he didn't want to get involved in this dispute. I forced him to get involved." Blue Sky Curse said, "Whether they are hostile or not, we have to find a way to find out their background." Longrui didn't express any other opinion. Since they knew that the other party was strong, they believed that even if the family investigated, it would be extremely secretive. "What should we do with this city?" Longrui asked a very important question. Blue Sky Curse frowned slightly. The situation was indeed a little troublesome. In their plan, Steward Wu had to turn the tide. Then, after solving the problem, the Lan family would forcibly move in and obtain absolute control of the city. But this time, it was the owner of the noodle house who turned the tide. He could be considered as one of Zi Chen's people. Then who should the credit go to? After all, most of the Luo family's foundation this time was destroyed by Zichen. He could be considered as the absolute main force that destroyed the Luo family with his own strength. This was a problem that needed to be taken seriously. Blue Sky Curse had no other way for the time being. Lang Rui said, "Should I discuss it with Zichen?" Blue Sky Curse shook his head and said, "Let me do it. It involves interests. This is not a small matter, nor is it a favor." Lang Rui had no objection. Then, Lang Rui took Blue Sky Curse downstairs and went to Zichen's room. He knocked on the door and entered the room. Everyone was gathered here, including Lan Hongyi, who was supposed to rest. "Zichen, this is my second uncle. He wants to talk to you," Lang Rui said directly. Zichen glanced at Shan Ye and the others. They left tactfully. Blue Sky Curse's gaze stopped on Lan Jiumeng and he nodded in a friendly manner. He already knew the news that Lang Rui brought back, but the family just dismissed it with a joke. Thus, the fate of the fairy was decided. Speaking of which, he was a pitiful person. Lan Jiumeng didn't know that Blue Sky Curse was Lan Hongyi's father. She was resistant to the people of the Lan family. After nodding, she quickly left. Lang Rui didn't stay long. He just left the two of them here. Obviously, it was not a small matter. Zichen said, "Senior, please sit down." Blue Sky Curse said, "I'm Hongyi's father." Zichen was stunned. He didn't quite understand what he meant, but he reacted quickly. He immediately said, "Uncle Blue, please sit down. Why are you looking for me? I have something to discuss with you. I want to see what you think." Blue Sky Curse saw Zichen's expression and said. Zichen said, "Uncle Blue, please go ahead." Blue Sky Curse said, "This time, the Luo family suffered a great loss. Their main force was almost wiped out. The Lan family took this opportunity to settle in this city. You should know, right?" "I guessed a little." Zichen nodded. "What do you think?" Blue Sky Curse asked. This made Zichen stunned again. What did the Lan family settling in Luowei City have to do with him? Ruier said that this time, the main force of the Luo family was almost wiped out by you. The one who should really settle in this city is you. Blue Sky Curse said again. Zichen shook his head and said, "Lang Rui is just being polite. With my strength, how can I control a city? Besides, we won't stay in this city for long. That may be the case, but this time, you all did your best. Or should I say that we should jointly manage this city?" This time, Zichen completely understood what Blue Sky Curse meant. He was not only asking for his opinion, but also asking for the opinions of the shopkeeper and Ou Li. It seemed that the Lan family attached great importance to this matter. Zichen didn't answer immediately. Instead, he thought for a moment and finally said, "I really don't need to. The people of the Luo family wanted to kill me. I killed them. That's all. However, I can't give an answer over there. I can only help to ask. Aren't you friends?" "We are friends, but I can't make the decision on this matter. If Uncle Blue is in a hurry, I'll go and ask now." This kind of matter was of course very urgent because it was related to huge interests. Moreover, the Lan family officially settling in here was also very significant. Their ultimate goal was the Holy Mountain. Zichen immediately left the room and went to the noodle house to find the two. He actually had doubts in his heart. Chapter 3806. As he walked through the streets, Zichen saw many shops that were not open. The backer of these shops was likely the Luo family. There was only one customer in the noodle shop, Ou Li. He was eating a big bowl of noodles. Old Tang leaned against the counter and watched Ou Li eat with a smile. When Zichen came in, Old Tang was clearly surprised. "Do you want a bowl?" Zichen nodded. "Big bowl." Then, he took a plate of side dishes and sat opposite Ou Li. Ou Li glanced at Zichen and said, "Want a jar?" Zichen shook his head and said, "Just a bowl of noodles. I have something to say today." Ou Li asked curiously, "What's so mysterious?" Zichen shook his head. Ou Li was even more curious. "We still have to wait for Old Tang to come out. It seems to be something big." Zichen thought for a moment and said, "It should be something big." Ou Li curled his lips and said disdainfully, other than life and death, everything else is trivial. Now, you are standing in front of me alive. What big deal can it be? Zichen obviously didn't agree with him. Old Tang came out with the noodles. He sat in front of Zichen and said with a smile, eat first. Zichen wolfed down the food. After a series of battles today, he was indeed hungry. Even though there was a human soul and an earth soul sitting beside him, he still didn't care about his table manners. Old Tang was still smiling as he gestured for Zichen to eat slowly. As for Ou Li, he said, are you the reincarnation of a hungry ghost? Zichen ate a mouthful of side dishes. I almost became a hungry ghost. Ou Li snorted. After eating the big bowl of noodles, Zichen felt his stomach warm and comfortable. It was as if all his fatigue had been swept away. Then, he got down to business. Someone from the Lan family came and asked me what to do with the Luo family's business. I came to ask you. They asked you. Why are you asking us? It's not like they want to give it to us. Ou Li said unhappily, you call this a big deal? Zichen said in a deep voice, I have to ask you this. We won't be staying in this city, and all the properties of the Lan family naturally have nothing to do with us. You two, on the other hand, did a lot today, so you should get some share. Ou Li drank a mouthful of the sour soup and said, take my ass. Old Tang interrupted Ou Li's words. He looked at Zichen and said, this city is called Luo Wei City. The Luo family has a huge property here. If they really want to give it to you, I think you can keep a part of it. Zichen shook his head and said, I won't stay here. The properties here are useless to me. Old Tang said, since you don't want it, then we want it. We can't let the Lan family occupy such a big place. Moreover, if we don't want it, they might not feel at ease. Old Tang's battle prowess was there, and he had done a lot this time to save the heir of the Lan family. It was not excessive to take some shares for such a great favor. Just as Old Tang said, if they did not take a share, the Lan family might not feel at ease with an Earth Soul stage cultivator living in the city. If they took a share, it would be different. The two sides could be considered allies, and everything would be happy. Zichen said, then I'll call him over. You guys can discuss this matter. Sure. Old Tang nodded. Zichen said, I have another question. Ask. The one who spoke was Ou Li. He had an expression that said, we've been waiting for you to ask. How did you know we were in danger? Why did you save us? Zichen asked the question in his heart. Ou Li laughed mockingly and said, it's very simple. You treated us to a drink, so we owe you a favor. Shouldn't we help you once? Zichen said, even a 3-year-old child wouldn't believe this reason, right? Ou Li said, it's up to you to believe it or not. Zichen looked at Old Tang. The other party was an Earth Soul stage cultivator, so he wouldn't be as unreliable as Ou Li. As expected, Old Tang didn't joke with Zichen. He said directly, not only are we going to save you this time, we're also going to take you to the north. The word north caused Zichen's expression to change. How do you know I'm going to the north? Old Tang stretched out his old palm and said, show me the token. Zichen's expression changed several times before finally returning to normal. He took out the token that the Lan family's ancestor had given him. It was said that in a critical moment, taking out this token could save one's life. However, Zichen didn't seem to have used it before. Instead, when he first came to Luowei City, he took it out to take a look when he was bathing. Looking at the token in Zichen's hand, Old Tang and Ou Li's expressions changed. It really is it. Old Tang's expression became incomparably excited, and tears actually appeared in his eyes. Zichen looked at Old Tang in confusion. It was just a token, so why was he so excited? It's been many years, or many generations, and we finally see the mission we need to complete, Ou Li explained. Zichen asked, what mission? Ou Li said, to send the holder of this token to the north. Zichen was still puzzled, and asked, but how do you know I have this token? Old Tang looked at the token in his hand very carefully, as if he wanted to remember every pattern on it. Ou Li continued to explain, this token is constantly releasing a strange fluctuation. This fluctuation can only be sensed by people who know a special secret technique. When we first saw you that day, there was still a remnant aura on your body. We already determined that you are the one we have been waiting for a long time to complete the mission. Zichen said in realization, so that's how it is, but you've got it wrong. The one you need to protect is not me, but, at this point, Zichen suddenly stopped. The Lan family's heavenly daughter, Lan Jiyu Meng, was a secret that could not be casually revealed. Old Tang's gaze finally moved away from the token. He looked at Zichen and said, after our mission appeared, we had more authority. You're talking about the Lan family's heavenly daughter, right? Zichen's expression changed. Old Tang said, you don't have to be so wary of us. After we have the authority, we can read all the information of the Lan family, and we can do it without alerting the Lan family. Zichen's expression changed. They could read all the information of the Lan family without alerting the Lan family. This time, we appeared in time because we read a part of the Lan family's confidential information. Old Tang said, our mission is to protect the holder of the token. As for the guardian of the heavenly soul goddess, it's not us, it's you. Me. Zichen was stunned. That's right, it's you. Old Tang said with certainty, the moment you obtained the token, you became the guardian of the heavenly soul goddess. But what we didn't expect was that the guardian of the heavenly soul goddess was not from the Lan family, but a descender. Chapter 3807. Zichen was still in shock. He did not expect Old Tang's background to be so great that he could read the Lan family's intelligence at will. And the mission of Old Tang and the others was to protect him. This made Zichen feel a little dazed. After a long time, he came back to his senses and said, in that case, I'll protect the Holy Maiden and you'll protect me. Then, you'll have to do whatever I ask you to do. Oyu Li rolled his eyes and said, you'll have to do whatever the Holy Maiden asks you to do, right? For example, serving tea, washing clothes, warming the bed, and sleeping with her. How is that possible? Zichen raised his voice a little, but it was soon muted. The nature was the same. Oyu Li said sarcastically, so, our goal is to try our best to keep you alive. Try our best. Isn't it necessary? Zichen was stunned again. Oyu Li looked at Zichen as if he was looking at an idiot. Didn't you almost kill the Holy Maiden today? Zichen was speechless. It seemed that with their protection, it was still not safe. There was still danger. Old Tang put down the blue token and formed a seal with his hands. With a serious expression, a mysterious light appeared at his fingertips. He pointed his finger at the token. Wang. The token began to tremble, and a powerful fluctuation surged out. This fluctuation did not spread, but it shook back and forth in the tavern like bright light wheels. After a full 15 minutes, the light wheels dissipated, and the bright light on the token dimmed a little. Old Tang pushed the token from the table to Zichen. After Zichen picked it up, he looked at it repeatedly. Although he could not see any changes in the token, he felt that it was different from before. All right, you can go back. Old Tang said, don't be in a hurry to leave this city for now. Why? Zichen asked in puzzlement. After Luowei City, you'll reach the Holy Mountain in the north. You've disrespected the Holy Mountain this time. Do you really think they're decorations? Before Old Tang could reply, Oyu Li said, if you don't break through to the human soul stage, you can forget about leaving. Human soul realm? How long will that take? Zichen's expression was somewhat bitter. He had just broken through to the soul true realm not long ago. That will depend on when you break through. Oyu Li looked at Zichen and sneered, kid, don't look down on the human soul realm. This realm is nothing to us, but to descenders from other places, it is an extremely high threshold. Oyu Li pointed at his feet. Coming here, it's easy to break through to the soul true realm, but it's extremely difficult to reach the human soul realm. I think you won't be able to make a breakthrough in 8 to 10 years, so if you have nothing to do, you can look for me. I can spar with you and let you experience more of the strength of the human soul realm. Zichen looked at Old Tang because Oyu Li's words were too unreliable. Old Tang nodded and said, it is indeed a good choice to leave after breaking through to the human soul realm. Zichen left in disappointment. It seemed that it would be difficult for him to leave in a short period of time. Old Tang's voice rang in Zichen's ears. If you regret it, you can ask the Lan family for a share. After all, you will be staying here for quite some time. Zichen naturally wouldn't ask for a share, but he had to plan for himself properly because Old Tang wasn't joking. If he couldn't break through to the human soul realm, his future would come to an end. After returning to the inn, he passed on Old Tang's message. Blue Sky Curse clearly relaxed a lot, and the next thing was naturally for the two of them to discuss. After sending Blue Sky Curse off, Zichen called the others to his room. The 6 of them were all present. Zichen took out the miracle stone. This was their greatest harvest last time, and it was priceless. Without the infusion of soul power, the miracle stone emitted a variety of colors, and it was magnificent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the miracle stone. It seemed that it was time to distribute it. Even if it was divided into 6 pieces and each of them took a piece, it would still be a great opportunity. Zichen's gaze swept across everyone's eyes. He could feel everyone's desire. Relatively speaking, Shan Ye's expression was the calmest. Zichen said, "I don't plan to divide it." The others were stunned when they heard this, and they all looked at Zichen. At this moment, Zichen's face was illuminated by the light, and there was an indescribable meaning to it. This is an amazing thing. Once it's separated, it's just a material that can be used to refine soul weapons, Zichen said. Lan Hongyi said, but it's a material by itself. Only when it's added to a weapon can its true effect be brought out. Zichen shook his head and said, I've sensed it once before. This miracle stone isn't that simple. It seems that a spirit has been born in it, but it hasn't developed intelligence yet. A spirit has been born? The others were shocked when they heard this. They looked at the miracle stone again. If what Zichen said was true, then the value of this miracle stone would be even higher. Zichen had used it once before and clearly sensed the situation of the miracle stone. Therefore, this thing had to be complete to have the highest value. Lan Rui said, if that's the case, then it really can't be divided. Otherwise, it would be a waste. Its size is big, and it's about to be born with intelligence. It's an absolute treasure and can be sold for a sky-high price. The others nodded repeatedly. This thing was really priceless. Among them, the most excited was Noah. He had sensed it once before, and that feeling was as if it was tailor-made for him. It was a part of his body, and he couldn't part with it at all. So now, how did Zichen plan to distribute this miracle stone? Zichen pondered for a moment and said, I thought about it seriously for a long time, and in the end, I still feel that it should be given to Shan Ya. Shan Ya? The few of them were stunned, clearly very surprised. For such a good thing, even if Zichen said that he planned to keep it for himself, no one would be surprised. But why did he give it to Shan Ya? At this moment, even Shan Ya was stunned. She looked at Zichen and said carefully, Did you say the wrong name? This thing doesn't fit me very well. Zichen said, Yes, it's for you. The others were still puzzled. Zichen handed the miracle stone to Shan Ya and said, Feel it carefully again and see if it fits you now. Shan Ya held the miracle stone and tried to release its power. The light on it faded away, and a special wave appeared. Shan Ya withdrew her power and said, It's no different from other soul weapons. It still doesn't fit. Zichen said, That's right. It's destined to be yours. If it doesn't fit, it's still mine. Everyone has a perfect fit. This in itself is an illusion. Zichen said, Only you can feel the difference and won't be affected. So, this is yours. In fact, the two of you are the most compatible. Of course, it will take some time to break in. Zichen wasn't lying, but he had sensed it. It was a mysterious feeling, and it was very mysterious. Chapter 3808. Shan Ya didn't quite understand Zichen's meaning. Why was she the only one who was compatible? In her perception, this was just a very ordinary thing, nothing special. Zichen did not explain, because this was just his intuition. If he really had to explain it in detail, it would be like suddenly seeing a stranger. Everyone would have a feeling of déjà vu, as if they had seen him somewhere before, or it could be said that he might be a long-lost relative of theirs. Only Shan Ya could see that he was a stranger. She saw the essence of it. It would be a lie to say that they didn't feel regret for giving the miracle stone to Shan Ya. But they also respected Zichen's choice. Zichen said, "The miracle stone has been given to Shan Ya. Next, when we get other things, we'll give them to everyone first. Consider it as compensation." Shan Ya said, "I don't want it. It's too precious." She wasn't being polite, but really didn't want it. "It's yours. This matter is settled." It was rare for Zichen to be so decisive this time, and his attitude was firm. No matter how unwilling the others were, they couldn't say anything at this moment. This time's discussion ended. Zichen gave the miracle stone to Shan Ya, and told her to refine it as soon as possible. Shan Ya could only take the miracle stone and refine it. As for the other things they got at Mount Garuda last time, Zichen let Noah distribute them to the others. Shan Ya took the biggest share, so naturally, she didn't want it. But Lan Rue and Lan Hongyi didn't want it either. They came from big families, so they naturally didn't lack those things. Lan Jiu Meng didn't want it either, and Noah only took a piece of material that could be used to refine soul weapons. The rest were returned to Zichen. It was unknown what Lan Tianju and Old Tang talked about, but it was a happy ending for both sides. Lan Haoshou, whom Zichen had seen once, disappeared, as if he had evaporated from the world. Old Tang said that if he didn't break through, he couldn't leave the city. So, Zichen stayed in his room to cultivate. However, the matter of breaking through was obviously not something that could be done in a day or two. 3 days later, when the situation had stabilized, Zichen went to the noodle house and saw Ou Li again. Zichen didn't ask what they were discussing and ordered a bowl of noodles. There were no other customers in the noodle house. He didn't know if it was because it was past mealtime or for some other reason. Ou Li raised his head and glanced at Zichen. "I won't be cultivating today. I'm hungry. Let's eat a bowl of noodles first." Zichen sat opposite Ou Li. Old Tang had already walked into the kitchen. Zichen was a regular, so he naturally knew what Zichen wanted to eat. Ou Li looked at Zichen from head to toe and said, "Kid, I saw you use a special recovery method when you were seriously injured last time." Zichen put down a small dish. "What, do you want to learn?" Ou Li curled his lips. "Learn my ass. But we can exchange pointers. After all, with that recovery technique of yours, it won't be easy to kill you." Zichen took a bite of the radish. "Sure, wait until I go back and write a talisman." Ou Li's mouth twitched. He naturally guessed what kind of holy talisman Zichen was talking about. He said, "Kid, you're really strange. Not only are you a descender, but you also know our soul art. This is the first time I've seen something like this in my life. It's not just a once in your life. It's more like a miracle." Old Tang came out with the noodles. This kind of situation is almost impossible. Zichen didn't know why he was so special. In any case, he couldn't find the reason. He took the noodles and said, "Tell me about the sacred mountain. What exactly is there?" "I don't know." Ou Li's answer was very straightforward. "Old Tang, a bottle of earthburn," Zichen said. Ou Li was immediately amused. He looked at Old Tang with an expression that said, "You're right." He coughed lightly and glanced at Old Tang. Old Tang threw a bottle of earthburn over. Ou Li chuckled and was about to open it, but Zichen's hand was already on it. Ou Li was startled. Zichen smiled but didn't say anything. The two stared at each other for about 3 breaths. Ou Li snorted and said, "The so-called sacred mountain is an extraordinary mountain peak with some miraculous encounters. That's why it's called Sacred Mountain." Zichen removed his hand and began to eat the noodles. "Correct, there's not just one sacred mountain, but 4. They represent the soul, talisman, soldier, and beast mountains. They're also known as the 4 sacred mountains." Ou Li opened the seal and drank a mouthful of wine. "The guy who came to find you last time should be from the Sacred Beast Mountain." "Sacred Beast Mountain? What's on it?" Zichen interrupted and asked. "There are all kinds of strange beasts." After opening his mouth, Ou Li didn't hide anything. The person who wanted to take away the Luo family's kid should be from the sacred beast mountain, and the reason he took a fancy to the Luo family's kid is because of the Luo Jiao. That kid is very strange. I don't know where he got the Luo Jiao from, but it's enough to prove that the Luo Jiao is extraordinary. Ou Li looked at Zi Chen. However, you're even more strange. Your pet can swallow the Luo Jiao, so it's obviously even more extraordinary. So, you have to be careful, don't let the people from the sacred beast mountain take it away. Zi Chen didn't care and said, "Don't worry, it's just a soul technique, not a pet." What, soul technique? Ou Li was stunned. Even old Tang, who was sitting on the side, was surprised. It's a soul technique I accidentally got. Zi Chen, who had finished his noodles, personally demonstrated it to the two. Looking at the ghost that appeared and disappeared, the two were clearly stunned. It's strange. Whenever I meet you, I always see strange things. That Luo Long schemed against you, he's just unlucky. Ou Li shook his head and sighed. Zi Chen had too many things that couldn't be explained with common sense. What about the other 3 sacred mountains? Zi Chen continued to ask. The other 3 sacred mountains have the sacred talisman technique, sacred soul weapon, and sacred soul technique. The 4 sacred mountains are collectively called sacred mountains, but they have a competitive relationship with each other. You can take advantage of this. Ou Li continued to talk about the 4 holy mountains until he finished the entire jar of Tujiu. He put down the empty bottle and said, "Come, let's exchange a few moves." Zi Chen shook his head, indicating that he wasn't in the mood. Old Tang chuckled and said, "Silly boy, it's a rare opportunity. Ou Li doesn't like everyone. You don't know how many people want to learn Ou Li's fighting techniques, but Ou Li has never taught anyone." Zi Chen heard this and his eyes lit up. Only now did he understand Ou Li's true intention. "Old Tang, make a battlefield." Ou Li said. Old Tang waved his hand, and the noodle restaurant disappeared, replaced by an independent space. Looking at the battlefield, Zi Chen was sure that the small noodle restaurant had another world. Chop. With that said, the wind from his palm was like a blade, rushing towards Zi Chen. Chapter 3809. Sensing the incoming powerful attack, Zi Chen's expression changed slightly. Didn't they say they were going to spar? This was clearly trying to take his life. Zi Chen shouted loudly as he crossed his arms and raised them up high. Soul light gushed out from his body as he made a blocking posture. Zi Chen had seen this kind of fighting before and had even specially studied it. The palm blade chopped down on Zi Chen's arms and a powerful force surged out. Zi Chen's body slid backward. During this time, his expression changed again and again because an indescribable soul power entered his body through his arms and shook his soul. Seeing Zi Chen's changing expression, Ou Li laughed and said, "You can only know the true power of this technique of mine when you personally experience it." After saying that, Ou Li stepped forward again and punched out with full power. Soul shake. Zi Chen also clenched his fist. Soul power surged out continuously and lightning was faintly discernible on his fist. With a loud bang, Zi Chen was sent flying between the 2 bursts of energy. Without using those shortkill techniques, Zi Chen's combat strength was still lacking compared to the human soul realm. Moreover, the person in front of him was Ou Li. Ou Li approached in a flash and attacked again. Zi Chen kept blocking and taking the opportunity to attack, but it was very difficult for him to touch the corner of Ou Li's clothes. Every time Ou Li attacked, his soul would be shaken. After exchanging blows more than 10 times, Zi Chen suddenly understood the meaning of the existence of soul techniques in this world. He understood why the people in this world still felt that they were the only ones in the world even though they knew about the existence of descenders. They seemed to have never been curious about the outside world and didn't care much about these descenders. They also never thought of going to the world of descenders to take a look. This was because this world was big enough, almost the same size as the Saint Spirit realm. Of course, this didn't refer to the area, but to the laws of heaven and earth. The Saint Spirit realm he was in had evolved one's strength to the limit, while this world evolved one's soul power to the limit. The soul power of this world was the foundation of the souls of the people in the Saint Spirit realm. In the knowledge of everyone in the Saint Spirit world, The soul was even more mysterious and important than strength. Because without power, one could still be an ordinary person. But without a soul, one would lose their life. At this moment, Zichen deeply felt this point. For example, his soul power was at the soul reality realm, which was equivalent to a 6-star sacred symbol master in the saint spirit realm. Therefore, all descenders who reached this level had the qualifications to become 6-star sacred symbol masters. This kind of situation was rare in the Holy Thunder clan. After all, which of those who had reached the level of a 6-star saint talisman master was not equivalent to an 8-star or 9-star saint spirit? If Zichen was not wrong, the human soul stage was equivalent to a 7-star sacred talisman master in the saint spirit realm. This was an extremely rare existence. The Earth Soul realm was equivalent to an 8-star sacred talisman master. To date, Zichen had yet to see an 8-star sacred talisman master. 6-star was a huge threshold that blocked 99% of the sacred talisman masters in the saint spirit world, causing them to be unable to advance. It was the same in this world. The human soul stage blocked most of the descenders, but relatively speaking, it was much easier for descenders to advance to the human soul stage compared to the saint spirit world. Therefore, descenders were willing to come to this world. Although Zichen did not want to admit that the grade of this world was higher, he had to admit that this place was indeed different. Brat, you dare to be distracted in a battle? You're courting death. Ou Li's angry shout woke Zichen up, but Ou Li's powerful attack had already arrived. With a loud boom, Zichen was sent flying. Ou Li approached in a flash with strange footwork, and several attacks landed. His soul had suffered many shocks, and Zichen could not hold on any longer. He directly fainted. When Zichen woke up again, he found himself lying on the table. His body was extremely sore, as if it was about to fall apart. Ou Li looked at him and said, "How do you feel?" Zichen weakly shook his head and said, "Not very good." Ou Li smiled and said, "That's right. If you want to learn this combat technique, you must first learn how to take a beating. Only when you truly feel it, will you be able to achieve the best results. Go back and have a good night's rest. We'll continue tomorrow. Ian, by the way, if you go back and cultivate now, it'll be very beneficial for your body." Zichen walked over. When he arrived at the inn, shopkeeper Guotong saw the pale face of Zichen and immediately came forward. He asked with concern, "Are you all right?" Zichen shook his head and said, "I'm fine." He endured the discomfort and returned to his room. Soon, Lan Rui and the others came. When they saw Zichen's state, they were all shocked. This state was much worse than the previous battle. Wasn't he fine in the morning? Didn't he go out to eat a bowl of noodles? How did he end up like this? Looking at the nervous crowd, Zichen waved his hand and said, "I'm fine. I'll be fine after a night's rest." Everyone was skeptical. After sending everyone off, Zichen sat cross-legged and began to meditate. Strands of soul power entered his body. Zichen sensed that the soul power entered his body and was absorbed by his body. A numb feeling spread throughout his body. Zichen still stayed in his room and didn't come out. This made Shan Ya very worried. She walked to the door several times and turned back. When the sky brightened, Zichen, who had cultivated for an entire night, recovered his mental state to its peak. After washing up, Zichen walked out of his room. Naturally, everything had to continue. He went out alone. First, he ate a bowl of noodles and asked Ou Li to drink a jar of clay wine. Then, he fought and fainted. After waking up, Ou Li said, "Bring someone to collect your corpse tomorrow. If you lie here like a corpse, it will affect old Tang's business." After Zichen returned, his miserable state was very puzzling. After comforting a few people, Zichen said, "Noah, come with me tomorrow and find a carriage while you're at it." Noah nodded, although he didn't understand what Zichen wanted to do. In the morning, the two set off. As usual, they ate noodles first and Ou Li drank. After eating, the two fought while Noah watched from the side. Looking at the one-sided battle, Noah finally understood why Zichen was in such a miserable state. After Zichen fainted, he brought Zichen back in a carriage. At the same time, Everyone also knew why Zi Chen was in such a state. Chapter 38:10. After Zi Chen woke up, he found himself back at the inn. He was very satisfied with Noah's performance. "You're awake." A gentle voice sounded. Zi Chen saw Lan Jiumeng sitting next to him and asked in surprise, "Why are you here? Where's Noah?" "He went to cultivate." "I'll accompany you starting tomorrow," Lan Jiumeng said. "You?" Zi Chen was slightly taken aback. Lan Jiumeng was the current angel. "I've learned how to take care of people since I was young. Among these people, I'm the only one who's free. Almost everyone else is very busy." Originally, Shan Ya was supposed to take care of Zi Chen, but she needed to refine the miracle stone, so this job was handed over to Lan Jiumeng. Although Lan Hongyi also expressed her willingness to take care of Zi Chen, who would dare to let her take care of him? After all, the Blue Sky Mantra was still in charge of this city. He had already settled in the City Lord's mansion and was currently the most powerful existence in this city. The matter was settled, and Zi Chen couldn't refuse. After repeatedly saying that he was fine, Lan Jiumeng left Zi Chen's room. At the same time, the two of them agreed to set off early the next morning. The next morning, when Zi Chen went out, Lan Jiumeng was already waiting outside Zi Chen's room. The two of them could only go together. After arriving at the noodle house, Ou Li was a little surprised to see that it was the angel. However, he still didn't hold back. First, he drank Zi Chen's wine, then he began to beat him up, even adding a little more strength. Today, Zi Chen lasted about a quarter of an hour before fainting. Lan Jiumeng knew that Zi Chen was cultivating, but this was the first time she had seen such a cultivation method of getting beaten up first. Therefore, before taking Zi Chen back, she asked how long this situation would last. Ou Li stretched out a finger, indicating that Zi Chen had to persist for at least 2 hours without being defeated. Obviously, he was still far from that level. And so, everything had to continue. Lan Jiumeng brought Zi Chen to his room. She washed his face, arranged for him to sleep, and covered him with a blanket. Next, she sat beside Zi Chen and quietly watched the sleeping Zi Chen. She recalled the past along the way. Ever since she left the miss, she had been alone. Moreover, she was targeted by the Lan family. If it weren't for Zi Chen and the others accompanying her, she would have long given up hope of living. Now that Zi Chen needed someone to take care of him, she was very willing. After all, Zi Chen had saved her many times along the way. After Zi Chen woke up, Lan Jiumeng stood up and left. Zi Chen began to cultivate. Just as Ou Li had said, cultivating in this state was extremely beneficial to him. His soul power had clearly increased by a lot, and his control over his body had also greatly improved. On a new day, Zi Chen persisted for a bit longer. Lan Jiumeng stood not far away and watched. Old Tang was nowhere to be seen. Ou Li didn't explain anything. He just fought. In other words, his goal was to suppress and beat up Zi Chen. Until Zi Chen fainted. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. It was like this every day. As a spectator, Lan Jiumeng finally couldn't stand it anymore. She said with dissatisfaction, "It's been a few days. I've seen all of your battles. You don't even plan to teach Zi Chen any techniques. You just want to bully him." Ou Li wasn't angry at Lan Jiumeng's criticism. He only chuckled and said, "I don't need to teach this combat technique of mine. If you understand it, then you understand it. If you don't, then you don't." Lan Jiumeng snorted and said, "Didn't you say last time that Zi Chen would be fine as long as he persisted for 2 hours? If you have the ability, then suppress your cultivation to the sole true realm. I think you'll be the one who won't last 2 hours." Ou Li glanced at the unconscious Zi Chen and said, "The 2 hours I said was just the minimum. If he still can't understand the essence of my combat technique by then, it means that he has no fate with my combat technique. At that time, he won't have to suffer anymore. He can go home and sleep comfortably." Lan Jiumeng glared at Ou Li again, but she couldn't be bothered to argue with him. She carried Zi Chen and walked out of the carriage. After returning to their residence, Lan Jiumeng looked worried when she saw the unconscious Zi Chen. She had already suffered a great sin. If Zi Chen couldn't learn it, then wouldn't she have suffered for nothing? After 2 hours, Zi Chen woke up. Now, his resistance to attacks had clearly increased by a lot. Although his body was still sore, the time he could endure was getting longer and longer. Seeing Zi Chen wake up, Lan Jiumeng, who had been thinking for a long time, said, "Oyu Li said that if you can't master this combat technique after enduring for 2 hours, it means that you have no fate with it." Zi Chen raised his head and looked at Lan Jiumeng. He noticed her worry, so he said with a smile, "Don't worry. There won't be a problem." Zi Chen wasn't boasting about himself. He had the foundation to begin with, and after experiencing it for so many days, he already had a simple understanding of this combat technique. He didn't dare to say how profound his cultivation would be in the future, but at the very least, he would be able to reach the basics. Really? Lan Jiumeng was still very worried about Zi Chen. Zi Chen nodded and said, "Oyu Li's combat technique is very special. As long as I can endure for 2 hours, I will naturally be able to reach the basics. You can rest assured about this." Seeing Zi Chen's confident expression, Lan Jiumeng was relieved. She said goodbye and left. Zi Chen continued to cultivate. The next day continued. As time passed, Zi Chen was able to hold on for longer and longer periods of time. His understanding of the combat techniques in this world was also getting a little deeper. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. In this half a month, Zi Chen had suffered a lot. Lan Gumeng could not bear to see it. However, Zi Chen's confidence was growing. Originally, he was blocking and dodging, but now, he was taking the initiative to attack. The duration of his endurance was about to reach 2 hours. This made Lan Jiumeng even more worried. She was very afraid that all of Zi Chen's efforts would be in vain in the end. Bang! A powerful force vibrated. After eating, the two of them fought again. This time, Oyu Li's body retreated at the same time. His face revealed a hint of surprise. He looked at Zi Chen and said, "You've comprehended it." Zi Chen smiled and said, "I've barely reached the basics. Right now, I can only achieve the most basic vibrational force." Oyu Li said, "This is already very good. In less than a month, you've already comprehended it. Your talent isn't bad." Looking at Oyu Li, who withdrew his fist, Zi Chen asked doubtfully, "Aren't we fighting today?" Chapter 38:11. Zi Chen never thought that the power of vibration he had comprehended was actually the essence of fighting techniques. He also didn't know that the most difficult part of fighting techniques was the entry level. The reason why Zi Chen was able to comprehend it in less than a month was because he had a solid foundation, and because the power of vibration was similar to the art of soul shock. Oyu Li retracted his soul power and looked at Zi Chen. "Next, I'll teach you the weapon manifestation technique." The power that he had previously retracted appeared once again. This time, it was a spear in one hand and a shield in the other. The moment he saw the shield, Zi Chen thought of the scene where Oyu Li appeared in time to block the Ghost King's attack. At that time, the shield in front of Oyu Li was also like this, just a bit bigger. Seeing Zi Chen's puzzled expression, Oyu Li said, "This is only a manifestation of soul power and not a real shield. The size can be changed at will." This time, Oyu Li didn't attack Zi Chen again. Instead, he let him find the trick to the manifestation. Without fighting, he naturally wouldn't have to suffer. This made Lan Jiumeng sigh in relief. After grasping the trick, Zi Chen bid farewell and left. Looking at the backs of the two, Old Tang walked up and asked with uncertainty, "Is this okay? If he wants to advance to the human soul stage, this is the best method." Oyu Li said, "If he's from the Lan family, we still have ways to let him grow faster. But I didn't expect him to be a descender. Fortunately, he's different from other descenders and can practice our world's soul techniques. Otherwise, there really isn't any other way." Zi Chen returned to his residence and tried to manifest his soul weapon. Soul power circulated in his palm and gradually condensed into a short spear. But the moment it took shape, it dissipated. Looking at the dissipating soul power, Zi Chen's expression didn't change much. According to Oyu Li, it would take at least 2 years to successfully manifest a weapon, maybe even longer. Once he could manifest a weapon, His fighting technique would be considered to have reached the large success stage. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Zichen stayed in the room and rarely came out, so they rarely saw each other. Lan Hongyi sat alone in the room, bored and in a daze. The boring cultivation had gradually made her, who was quite talented, lose her patience. She left the room and went to look for Shan Ya. Floating in front of Shan Ya was a ball of light. It was the size of a baby's head and was revolving around it. The ball of light was extremely fast, leaving a clear trace in the air. "What is this?" Lan Hongyi, who had knocked on the door and walked in, asked curiously. "That miracle stone from back then." The ball of light landed in front of Shan Ya like a sparkling and translucent crystal ball. It was poles apart from its previous dazzling appearance. Lan Hongyi came forward and carefully looked at the miracle stone. She said in surprise, "Is this really the miracle stone? How did it become like this? And why is it so much smaller?" Shan Ya shook her head and said, "I don't know what's going on. It just slowly became like this." Looking at the greatly changed miracle stone, Lan Hongyi said, "It seems that Zichen's choice was right. It really belongs to you." The miracle stone was originally called a miracle. Its material was very strong, so there was almost no wear and tear when refining soul weapons. However, when it came to Shan Ya, it had not been processed by any special means. It was just refined with strength. Unexpectedly, the miracle stone had changed so much. Right now, if she had not seen the miracle stone before, Lan Hongyi would not believe that this crystal-like ball was the huge miracle stone from back then. "Why are you free to come over?" Shan Ya casually placed the miracle stone on the table. "I'm bored. Let's go out for a walk." Lan Hongyi looked at Shan Ya. "Where's Zichen?" Shan Ya was a little embarrassed because Zichen had told her a few months ago to refine the miracle stone as soon as possible. "Zichen is still cultivating. He won't know. Just one day." "My good Shan Ya, let's go call Little Mute. Let's go out and play for a day, okay?" Lan Hongyi pulled Shan Ya's arm and begged pitifully. Lan Hongyi would only show her feminine side when the girls were together. Unable to resist Lan Hongyi's pleading, Shan Ya could only nod helplessly. Then the two of them went to call Lan Jiumeng together. But when they passed by Zichen's room, the three of them tiptoed, as if they had done something wrong. They did not dare to make the slightest sound. Zichen was still in the room condensing a soul weapon for his combat arts. In the past 3 months, he had tried countless times, but he had not succeeded once. Even if his soul power was different, it was still the same. After another failure, he sensed the abnormality outside the room. He did not say anything. He could not expect everyone to cultivate day and night like him. In fact, sometimes going out for a walk to relax was actually quite beneficial for cultivation. The three of them walked down the stairs, and all of them breathed a sigh of relief. Their mood became extremely good. Lan Hongyi ran out of the inn, but she was too anxious and almost bumped into the person who came in. "Father, why are you here?" Seeing the person who came, Lan Hongyi was very surprised. Lan Tianju snorted and said, "You still know that I'm your father. It's been a few months, and you didn't say anything about going to the city lord's mansion to see your father." Lan Hongyi rolled her eyes and said with grievance, "It's all because of Zichen. He keeps making us cultivate, so we can't see each other. Father, since you're here today, teach him a good lesson." Lan Tianju said, "If you're really so obedient, then I have to thank Zichen. With your potential, if you didn't slack off, you would have advanced to the human soul realm long ago." In order to avoid a long lesson, Lan Hongyi hurriedly said, "Father, why are you here?" "Are you here to look for Long Rui?" "I'm going back to the family, so I came to tell you," said Lan Tianju. "You're going back?" Lan Hongyi was slightly stunned, and her mood immediately became depressed. "I've been here for too long. There are other important things to deal with in the family, and the situation here has stabilized." Lan Tianju looked at Lan Hongyi and said, "Do you want to go with me?" Lan Hongyi shook her head without thinking and said, "No, I'm not going back. I must do what I promised." Lan Tianju looked at Lan Hongyi and sighed. "You've been troublesome since you were young. But this time, I'm on your side." "Really?" Lan Hongyi was very surprised, But more than that, she was pleasantly surprised. Lan Tianju waved his hand, indicating that Lan Hongyi could leave. If he didn't support Lan Hongyi wouldn't have left the family with Lang Rui to protect the fairy. Speaking of which, in such a large family, there were only 2 people who wanted to help the fairy. Shan Ya and Lan Jiumeng bowed to Lan Tianju. Lan Tianju went to find Lang Rui. Before he left, he needed to have an open discussion with the future successor of the family. The future successor of the Lan family would affect the fate of the entire Lan family in the future. Lang Rui's identity and status were definitely extraordinary. The 2 of them talked for 2 hours. Chapter 38:12. Zi Chen, who was cultivating, opened his eyes when he heard a knock on the door. He was puzzled. He had already instructed that no one would disturb his cultivation unless there was something special. However, when he sensed the person outside the door, his expression changed. He quickly got up and opened the door. "Uncle Lan, why are you here?" Zi Chen was surprised. "Come in and have a seat. I'm going back to my family, so I came to say hello." Lan Tianspel sat down. Zi Chen hurriedly poured him some water. However, no one had come for a long time, so the water had turned cold. Zi Chen said, "I'll get them to change now. There's no need to go through so much trouble. I'll leave after nagging for a while." Lan Tianspel waved his hand, indicating for Zi Chen to close the door. Zi Chen closed the door and sat beside Lan Tianspel. "Hongyi seems to be very obedient to you. She has been cultivating more recently." This was Lan Tianspel's opening remark, which stunned Zi Chen. He hurriedly said, "You're flattering me. This is Miss Hongyi's own diligence. I don't dare to take credit." Lan Tianspel waved his hand and said, "She's my daughter. I know her personality very well." Then, Lan Tianspel looked at Zi Chen and said, "Are you really unwilling to stay in Luowei City? Like I said before, if you're willing to stay, I can give you some shares, or we can manage this city together." He was clearly trying to persuade him to stay, which was beyond Zi Chen's expectations. However, Zi Chen did not think too much about it. He shook his head and said, "I won't stay in Luowei City." "Then where do you plan to stay?" Lan Tianspel asked. Zi Chen shook his head again. "I don't know. I should stay at the moment when I can't move forward, right?" Lan Tianspel was confused. What did he mean by unable to move forward? Either there's no path forward, or I'll stay at the moment I die in this world. Zi Chen looked at Lan Tianspel and said, "Uncle Lan, you should know that I'm a descender, right? We have to leave this place and return to our world." Lan Tianju nodded. "I know that, but in history, many descenders chose to stay because this place is more suitable for cultivation than your world." This sentence was not wrong, but the so-called cultivation was only focused on soul power. If a descender were to break through to the heavenly soul realm here, they might become a 9-star sacred symbol master when they returned to their original world. He was a 9-star saint talisman master, not a 9-star saint spirit. These were 2 completely different concepts. Just like how a 6-star sacred talisman master could defeat a 6-star sacred spirit, the difference between the 2 was too great. After pondering for a moment, Zi Chen said, "Perhaps some descenders chose to stay, but that person is definitely not me. In our world, I had my own mission, and I also had my own concerns. I came to this world to find what I want. Once I find it, I will leave." "What if we can't find it?" Blue Sky Curse asked again. "Then it's time to die in battle," said Zi Chen. Lan Tianspel nodded again and said, "In that case, I won't persuade you anymore. I wonder if you have any leads on what you're looking for?" Zi Chen said, "Maybe it's on the Holy Mountain." There were a total of 4 holy mountains, and one of them had all kinds of holy talisman arts. The second part of the ghost-devouring soul technique that Zi Chen needed might be on that holy talisman mountain. Of course, it could also be a soul technique on another holy soul mountain. Regardless of which mountain it was, Zi Chen had to go to the holy mountain this time. He was also the main path to the north. In other words, you will go to the holy mountain next. Not for the time being. I will only move after I obtain the human soul realm. Zi Chen said, "When I killed Luo Long, I had some conflicts with the people of the holy mountain, so it's better to be safe." Lan Tianspel had heard Lan Hongyi mention this matter before. At that time, Lan Hongyi said that Zi Chen was upholding justice on behalf of the heavens, so that Luo Long would no longer harm others in the future. After receiving Zi Chen's clear answer today, Lan Tianspel bid farewell and left. In fact, he had another reason for asking Zi Chen to stay. He believed that the smart Zi Chen had already seen through it and given him the answer he wanted. That was enough. Before he left, he turned back to look at Zi Chen and said, "If it's possible, I hope you can help Hongyi when she's in danger. This child has a stubborn personality and will never compromise easily. This time, she came out with Langrui and is even more stubborn. Of course, this is not an order. It's just a request from a father who is worried about his daughter." Zi Chen stood up and said sternly, "Hongyi is my friend. I won't just stand by and watch her be in danger." Satisfied, Lan Tianspel left. After staying here for several months, the city had completely stabilized. The name of the city was not changed, but everyone knew that the Luo family was a thing of the past. This made many people who had been persecuted in the past clap their hands in joy. Zi Chen continued his cultivation. It would take him a long time to break through to the human soul realm. Langrui and Nuo Ya were also cultivating diligently. Obviously, everyone knew that the path to the holy mountain would not be peaceful. The three women would go out from time to time, so they were not as hardworking as the three of them. But this was also where the three of them found joy. In the blink of an eye, another half a year had passed. In this inn where the price was calculated by the day, if it wasn't for the shopkeeper waiving all their expenses, the cost of food and lodging in such a long period of time would definitely be an extremely dazzling figure. In another 3 months, it would be almost a year in this city. Zi Chen's soul power had increased by a lot, but he was still a distance away from breaking through. But what everyone didn't expect was that the first to break through to the human soul realm was not the hard-working Zi Chen, but Shan Ya. She spent most of her time refining the miracle stone that had changed its appearance greatly. She didn't have much time to cultivate, but she was the first to break through among the group. Everyone was shocked and surprised. Only Zi Chen and Nuo Ya knew that Shan Ya's identity was extraordinary, so they weren't surprised at all. For this reason, Zi Chen and the others specially set aside a day to celebrate Shan Ya. The second to break through was Lan Jiumeng. After they had been in this city for an entire year, the divine soul goddess of the Lan family also showed extraordinary potential. The two people beside her, who didn't cultivate diligently, broke through just like that. Lan Hongyi felt great pressure and no longer played around, but focused on cultivation. For a very long time after that, no one made another breakthrough. Another half a year passed. In the room, light appeared in front of Zi Chen. The light began to manifest and gradually turned into a spear. This scene had been going on for a long time. Zi Chen had long been prepared for failure. After all, he had failed so many times. Buzz. At this moment, there was a tremor, and a ripple of light spread out in all directions. A spear materialized from energy appeared in front of Zi Chen, as if it was real. He had finally mastered his combat technique. Chapter 38:13. The spear materialized in front of him, and a hint of joy appeared on Zi Chen's face. But at this moment, an even bigger surprise came. The soul power in Zi Chen's body began to change. This was a qualitative change. At this moment, Zi Chen finally understood why Ou Li wanted him to practice combat techniques. Because once he mastered it, he would be able to break through to the human soul realm. Or rather, only when one reached the human soul realm could one condense a soul weapon to fight. After succeeding once, the second time would be even easier. The second soul weapon that materialized was a huge light shield that could block damage from the enemy. Zi Chen's aura spread out, and the pressure of the human soul realm enveloped the inn. After shopkeeper Guotong sensed this aura, his expression changed slightly. He raised his head and looked at the roof, thinking to himself, did someone break through again? In less than 2 years, 3 of the tavern's regulars had already broken through. And they had all broken through from the soul realm to the human soul realm. But he didn't know who it was this time. Was it the young master and young miss of the Lan family? Shan Ya also sensed this familiar aura of the human soul realm, and all of them had joy on their faces. So she immediately left the room and went straight to Zichen's residence. She knew who had broken through. Then, Lan Jiu Meng, Noah, Lung Rui and the others also appeared. In Zichen's room, everyone was gathered. Everyone was here to congratulate him. Zichen also had a smile on his face. He didn't expect himself to break through so quickly. Lung Rui, who was in a bad mood, said, "Now that you've broken through, when do you plan to leave?" "There's no rush. Let's familiarize ourselves first," Zichen said. It was impossible for him to leave right after breaking through. He had to consider the feelings of others, especially Lung Rui. Back then, Zichen was able to break through to the soul realm because of Lung Rui's help. Now that he had advanced to the human soul realm, but Lung Rui was still in the soul realm, so he couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Lung Rui nodded and immediately went to cultivate. Clearly, he didn't want to drag everyone down when they set off. This future heir of the Lan family was still very strong. Lan Hongyi also left. She was still one step away from the human soul realm. Noah immediately went to cultivate. As everyone broke through, he felt immense pressure. After all, in terms of talent, he was considered the worst. Zichen took the others out to eat, then went to the noodle house. Although he hadn't been here for more than a year, the place hadn't changed much. Zichen saw Ou Li, and Ou Li looked at Zichen at the same time. After sensing the flow of energy around Zichen, Ou Li's eyes lit up. "You broke through?" Zichen nodded. "Let me test your strength." Ou Li snapped his fingers, and the noodle house turned into a battlefield. Of course, it was old Tang's doing. Ou Li stood up, and the aura of the human soul stage erupted. "Kid, go ahead and let me see your true strength." Chop. Soul light flickered all over Zichen's body. As soon as his words fell, his palm struck out like a blade. Lightning flashed between his palms, and a whistling sound rang out. Clang. The palm wind was blocked by Ou Li, but the vibrating force seemed to be everywhere. Ou Li took a step back, then exerted his strength again, and punched out. A light flashed in front of Zichen, and a light shield appeared, forming a blocking posture. With a loud bang, Zichen's body retreated, and the light shield in front of him collapsed. Ou Li also took a few steps back. Feeling the vibrating force from his fist, his eyes lit up slightly, and he said, "Not bad, let's continue." The two of them went back and forth, and fought for a full 2 hours. Zichen wasn't familiar with it at the beginning, but he gradually became familiar with it, and his control of his strength had reached an extreme. Looking at Zichen, whose aura didn't seem to have weakened much, Ou Li shook his head and said, "Let's stop. Your endurance is not bad." Zichen also took the opportunity to stop. After grasping the trick, his fighting technique could be considered to have reached the large success stage. His fighting technique only needed to be sharpened a little more, and he would be able to do it. Even with Zichen's extraordinary soul power, he wasn't at a disadvantage when fighting with Ou Li, and it wouldn't be long before he surpassed his master. "Kid, I'll teach you one last move. If you want to increase the power of your fighting technique, then fuse your strength into your soul weapon." Ou Li looked at Zichen and said, "So, you need 2 suitable weapons, one for offense and one for defense." In Zichen's hand, a light flashed, and a black rod appeared. At the same time, he used his fighting technique, and a similar long rod appeared in his left hand. Ou Li nodded silently. This kid's talent is not bad, and is also extremely intelligent, understanding with just a hint. Zichen held 2 long rods in his hands, and then the left and right hands combined, and the 2 long rods merged into one. Buzz! The soul weapon long rod in Zichen's right hand lit up with rays of light, and almost half of the patterns on it lit up. At the same time, a powerful aura surged out from it. This aura was incomparably terrifying, and ripples constantly surged around the soul weapon, as if it could break open this space at any time. Feeling the power of the long rod, Zichen's eyes also lit up. Clearly, he didn't expect that fighting techniques could be used like this. Looking at the excited Zichen, Ou Li said, "So, you still need a light shield now, and there should be a suitable Saint Soul weapon on the sacred mountain." "Saint Soul weapon?" The weapons from the sacred mountain are all called Saint Soul weapons. For example, the one in your hand is also a Saint Soul weapon. Oyu Li pointed at the long rod in Zichen's hand and said, "Kid, you're quite lucky to have such an extraordinary weapon when you're in the soul realm. You have to know that the Saint Soul weapons from the sacred mountain have always been the dream of many people in the human soul realm." "My weapon is a Saint Soul weapon?" Looking at the long rod in his hand, Zichen was stunned. "What, you don't know?" Oyu Li asked back. Zichen shook his head and said, "I took it from a human soul realm cultivator. Back then, he wanted to sneak attack us, but unexpectedly, I killed him instead. I took it mainly because it was a human soul realm weapon, that's all." This was clearly a pleasant surprise for Zichen. However, what puzzled him was why a Saint Soul weapon from the sacred mountain would be in the hands of an unremarkable human soul realm cultivator. In fact, it wasn't that the human soul realm was unremarkable. None of the human soul realm cultivators in the world were ordinary. Which one of them wasn't a king in their own territory? The extraordinary one was Zichen. It was Zichen's Saint Talisman art. Also, the time flow that the blue dragon beast controlled back then made that human soul realm cultivator who should have been extraordinary unable to unleash his strongest strength before he was killed just like that. It could be said that he died in a rather sullen manner. Oyu Li could teach Zichen, and Zichen already knew everything. Next, Oyu Li suggested that Zichen go to the sacred mountain. Regarding this, Zichen didn't immediately agree, because Longrui and the other two hadn't broken through yet. It wouldn't be good for him to leave right after breaking through. He still needed to think about it. However, just as he returned to the inn, he saw that Longrui and the others had already packed their things. Zichen was a little surprised. Chapter 38:14. Go to the sacred mountain? Zichen was stunned and asked in confusion, "Is it that urgent?" After all, Longrui, Noah, and Lan Hongyi had not made a breakthrough yet. According to their strong personalities, they would definitely hold their breaths and wait for their breakthroughs. Now that everyone was ready to leave, it was natural that something was going on. Longrui said, "The sacred mountain's sage mirror is about to open. We have to get to the sacred mountain before it opens. Otherwise, we will miss this opportunity to enter the sacred mountain." The sacred mountain's sage mirror? What is that? Zichen had never heard of such a thing. It's a kind of treasure that can select the qualifications to enter the sacred mountain. Only by getting its approval can one enter the sacred mountain. Longrui said, "The news was just sent to me by my family, so we can leave early and have the advantage of time." Since it was related to whether they could enter the sacred mountain, it was naturally a very important and urgent matter. Zichen did not say anything more. All of his belongings were on him, and there was almost nothing to pack. He could just turn around and leave. But before that, he had to tell Oyu Li looking at Zichen, who had left and returned. Oyu Li asked, "Why are you back? Are you hungry again?" Zichen said, "I plan to go to the sacred mountain now." "Now?" Oyu Li was a little surprised. "Didn't you just say that you would think about it? Why did you change your mind now? Did you hit your head on the way back just now?" Zichen snorted and said, "Don't you have a lot of information? Why are you asking me?" Oyu Li sneered, "You are alive and well. Why do we need information? Do you think that the information is yours and that you can read it whenever you want?" Zichen said, "The sacred mountain's sage mirror is about to open. We have to go there early." The sacred mirror? Oyu Li pondered for a moment and said, "If that's the case, you have to go there early. Only by getting the approval of the sacred mirror can you enter the sacred mountain. Moreover, the sacred mirror's temperament is very strange. The earlier you go there, the greater the advantage. If you go late, no matter how talented you are, you may not be able to get its approval. Yes, there is a precedent for this, and it once caused quite a stir." "What precedent?" Zichen asked curiously. Back then, there was a publicly recognized genius who was said to have the potential to be recognized by the two sacred mountains. However, because he was late by an incense stick's worth of time, he was rejected by the sage heavenly mirror. At that time, many people went to watch that amazing genius, wanting to see how he performed on the holy mountain, but they didn't expect that he would be directly disqualified, causing a big uproar. Ou Li said, "And the family behind that genius clearly has a great background. They went to the sacred mountain to argue, but in the end, they came aggressively and left with their tails between their legs. It is said that they didn't even dare to let out a fart after entering." "What do you mean by the recognition of 2 sacred mountains?" Zichen asked again. "It means that among the 4 sacred mountains, there are 2 that you can join." Looking at Zichen's calm expression, Ou Li said, "Kid, don't underestimate this kind of talent. You should know Luo Long. Not only does he have a lewd dragon by his side, but his talent is also extraordinary. He has the title of invincible in this city. However, he was only chosen by a sacred mountain, and it took him a long time to pass the assessment. If you didn't want to kill him in the end, I believe that the sacred mountains people wouldn't have come. After all, he hasn't passed the assessment yet. After the Sage Heavenly Mirror is opened, the normal assessment can be avoided. However, it is very difficult to be recognized by the Sage Heavenly Mirror. Coupled with the mood of the Sage Heavenly Mirror, many people who are interested in it will go there as soon as they know about it." Ou Li paused and said, "In addition, the opening of the Sage Heavenly Mirror is a kind of prosperity for the sacred mountain, so many people will go there. There are many hidden dragons and crouching tigers." At this time, Zichen saw Old Tang coming out of the kitchen and closing the door. "Closing?" Zichen asked, puzzled. "Closing," Old Tang said. "What? Closing?" Zichen was stunned. He knew that Old Tang's shop had been open for generations and had never closed. Ou Li said, "I haven't finished yet. Because the opening of the sacred mountain is a big event, all the big and small forces nearby will go there. While there are many hidden dragons and crouching tigers, there are also many fierce people who block the road and rob people, so most of them need some elders to escort them." Ou Li stood up, looked at Zichen and said, "This time, the 2 of us will be your elders and escort you. You want to go with me?" Zichen was a little surprised, but he soon understood. They were his guardians, so naturally, they had to ensure his safety at all times. Just like how he had to stay by Lan Jiumeng's side, Old Tang had to follow him when he left. This was because Old Tang's mission was to protect Zichen, and Zichen was the person Old Tang had been waiting for. Zichen's mood was obviously very good. After all, Old Tang was a genuine Earth Soul expert, an amazing expert. With such an existence by his side, there were naturally many benefits. The 2 of them following him was a complete surprise. After Zichen brought the 2 back, the few people who knew about it were also very excited. Naturally, the road ahead would be even safer. Shopkeeper Guotong sent Zichen's group all the way out of the city, and had already arranged for the best carriages and horses. During the turmoil in Luowei City this time, Lan Hao had disappeared without a trace, and as a local, shopkeeper Guotong had obtained quite a bit of power and benefits. Furthermore, he had also learned of Lan Rui's identity through some secret information. This made him even more shocked, so he was especially polite to Zichen and the others. Guotong had prepared 3 carriages for Zichen's group. He knew that Zichen's journey was very far and that ordinary people would not be able to reach it, so he specially prepared 6 coachmen. 2 of them were at the Soul True realm, and the other 4 were at the Soul Void realm. Using such strength as coachman was wasteful and extravagant. Lan Rui accepted the carriages, but let those people leave. The road ahead was long, and he did not know what dangers there would be. He obviously could not care about these people. But this kindness of Guotong's, he remembered it. 3 carriages pulled by strange beasts. 3 women were in one, and the coachman was Zichen. Old Tang was alone, and he was the coachman. The carriage was empty. Lan Rui, Ou Li, and Noah were in one carriage, but the one driving the carriage was not Noah, but Ou Li. Noah was originally going to take on this job, but Zichen told Ou Li that Noah needed to cultivate, so the coachman became Ou Li. This made Ou Li grumble, saying that his intention was not to be a coachman. Zichen bought him a jar of clay, and only then did he send him away. The clay was bought from Old Tang. It was said that he brought all his belongings, including all the clay. Other than that, There was another reason why Ou Li was the coachman, and that was because he knew the way. This time, he was also responsible for leading the way for everyone. Chapter 38:15. Luowei City was one of the main routes to the sacred mountain, so the city was very lively. There were many caravans coming and going, so it was not strange to bump into one or two along the way. Apart from Luowei City, they had to pass by 5 other cities along the way before they could reach the sacred mountain. However, the 5 cities were very far apart from each other, so there were some small towns or inns in between. Of course, there were also organizations like Kiara Mountain, and there were quite a few of them. As a result, there were experts guarding the caravans along the way. Basically, every caravan would have at least one Soul Realm expert overseeing it. Moreover, there were many people in the caravan. It was extremely rare to see someone like Zi Chen, who only had 3 carriages and no guards beside him. The caravans they met along the way were filled with vigilance after the group of people arrived. They basically did not interact with them. It was necessary to be on guard. Moreover, they would definitely not allow outsiders to join them along the way. This was because many things had happened on this path that was filled with opportunities and dangers. Some things were almost unimaginable, but they still happened. There was once an extremely famous caravan that encountered an ambush along the way. There were still a few people left in the caravan, and they looked very pitiful. As a result, the caravan brought them along. Who would have thought that those pitiful people were actually in disguise? After winning everyone's trust, they poisoned the caravan with a strange poison that reduced the caravan's guards' battle prowess to less than 1/10. In the end, the caravan was massacred. All the guards in the caravan were killed, but the leader of the guards survived. The few people he kindly took in had their cultivations crippled, leaving them with only their lives. It was said that it was to repay his kindness. No one knew what happened to the leader of the guards because there were too many versions. However, from then on, there was an unwritten rule on this route. No more people were added to the caravan along the way. No matter how many blue crystal coins were offered, or how pitiful they looked, they were rejected. Ou Li chuckled beside the bonfire. Don't you think that guy is stupid? Can't he just take care of himself? Why did he have to worry about other people? So what if he was kind enough to spare his life? Would he be able to live a peaceful life when he returned? Hearing this story, everyone fell into silence. Ou Li told everyone this story after they were alerted by the caravan earlier in the day. Zi Chen added a handful of firewood to the bonfire and said, "That wasn't kindness at all. It was pure malice." They all looked at Zi Chen. Zi Chen said, "The fact that the leader of the guards lost his cultivation is already a fate worse than death. After he returns, he still has to clean up the aftermath of his dead companions and be responsible for his employer. The best outcome for him is to go bankrupt. The so-called kindness doesn't exist at all. Those guys are using this method to humiliate him, to humiliate his kindness. In other words, he wants him to live a life worse than death and live out the rest of his life in guilt. Maybe one day, he won't be able to hold on and will commit suicide." "That's right, that's what old Tang said too." Ou Li nodded and asked, "What about you? If it were you, what would you have done?" Zi Chen fell silent. Ou Li then looked at the others. "What about you guys? If it was the leader of the guards, what would he have chosen?" "Of course I wouldn't have saved him. He didn't even live well. How could he save others?" Noah said directly without any hesitation. This was very in line with his character. After all, he was once a leader, and the leader of a tribe. Lan Hongyi thought for a moment and said, "You can let them follow the team and give them some food. They don't have to join the team." Lan Jiu Meng and Shan Ye gave similar answers. Lan Rui shook his head and said, "I won't save them either. I won't kill more people just to save a few people. I won't do such a thing." Ou Li looked at Zi Chen. Zi Chen said, "It's not the leader of the guards' fault. It's the bad guys who took advantage of the leader of the guards. If it were me, I would definitely kill those bad guys." Ou Li said, "So, your choice is to save people, right? Don't have the heart to hurt others, but don't let your guard down." "I won't let my guard down. In fact, there was already a precedent for this. It happened to Yi Yuan. Zi Chen chose to help him, but he didn't really trust him. This wasn't a profound question, nor was it a test. They were just chatting. Soon, everyone changed the topic. Since the Luo family's forces were destroyed, those forces like Mount Garuda were cleared up. The traveling caravans felt much safer. After traveling for 5 days, Zi Chen didn't encounter any other danger except for the passing caravans. Half a month later, they came to a small town. This was a place for people to rest temporarily. The place wasn't big. There were 3 inns and some shops for business. The town was surrounded by a very ordinary fence. There was no charge at the gate. People could enter and leave at will. Ou Li directly drove the carriage into the small town. He planned to rest here for a while. There were many people passing by, but most of them were teams of more than 100 people. People like Zi Chen were rare, so many people looked at them strangely. Ou Li arrived outside an inn. Noah and Lan Rui walked down, and the 2 of them entered first. Soon, a waiter came out and drove the carriage to the backyard. The inn wasn't small. The first and second floors were for eating, while the 3rd floor and above were for people to stay. As the group walked in, everyone's gazes immediately turned to look at them. After a quick glance at Zi Chen and the rest, their gazes landed on the 3 girls. For a moment, the 3 of them became the focus of attention. Noah pointed to the 2nd floor and said, "There is a private room upstairs. Let's eat first." Zi Chen nodded. When they went upstairs, Noah whispered, "There are many people here. There are only 3 rooms left. I booked all of them." After eating, Lan Rui went to inquire about some information. So far, there was no news about the opening of the heavenly mirror on the holy mountain. It could be seen that the Lan family's information was first-hand. They only stayed in the inn for 1 night. The next day, the group continued on their journey. Just as they walked down the stairs, they heard a piece of news. A caravan had been massacred. Men, women, old, and young were all killed. There was nothing left except for the bodies. The diners downstairs were talking about it. At the same time, they were worried. "It's the Blood Crow King. It must be the Blood Crow King. He's back. Only he has the strength to do so." Chapter 38:16. The mention of Blood Crow King caused quite a commotion in the inn. Even at this moment, the number of gazes that were focused on the 3 ladies had decreased significantly. Zi Chen looked down from the stairs and realized that many people's faces were filled with fear. This made him curious. What was the origin of the Blood Crow King? Just the 3 words Blood Crow King caused the surrounding discussions to become softer. Zi Chen did not hear any valuable information when he went downstairs. Just as he was about to walk out of the door, he saw a burly man who was drinking alone on the 1st floor suddenly stand up. He looked at Zi Chen and said, "Brother, are you heading to Jinyuan City?" The other party's gaze looked in his direction. Zi Chen turned his head, and the 2 of them looked at each other. After confirming that the other party was talking to him, he nodded slightly. The surrounding discussions immediately disappeared. Everyone stared in his direction with different expressions. Some looked at Zi Chen with pity, while others looked at him as if he was an idiot. A caravan had just been massacred, and everyone here was in a state of panic. Originally, some teams had planned to leave early in the morning, but they chose to stay and did not dare to take another step forward. "Do you want to die if you leave now? If the person who massacred the caravan this time is really the Blood Crow King, you have to be careful, brother." The burly man glanced at Lan Jiumeng and the other 2 and said, "A team like yours is his favorite prey, and also his first target. I think it's better for you to stay, lest you lose your life in vain." Many people around nodded their heads. Many of the stories about the Blood Crow King were related to women. It was said that any woman who fell into his hands would not have a good ending. If they could die on the spot, it would be a fortunate thing. Zi Chen's team did not have many people, but they had 3 beauties accompanying them. This was naturally the type that the Blood Crow King liked. Zi Chen cupped his fists at the robust man and said, "Thank you for your reminder, brother. However, we have an important matter to attend to in Jinyuan City, so we must set off today." Zi Chen knew that Jinyuan City was the next city. Therefore, He admitted that he wanted to go to the next city. He couldn't tell anyone that he was going to the sacred mountain. Right now, the sacred mountain's Elysium mirror was about to open, which was still a secret. With that, Zichen turned around and left. Lan Jiumeng and the others left as well. Their expressions didn't change much. As for the Blood Crow King that everyone was terrified of, he did not scare them. Not to mention that they knew nothing about the Blood Crow King. Even if they knew about his deeds, they would not care. That was because the weakest in the group was at the Soul Realm, while there were as many as 4 at the Human Soul Realm. Apart from that, there was also an Earth Soul Realm expert. No matter how great the Blood Crow King's reputation was, he was at most a bandit. How powerful could he be? Heavenly Soul Stage? That didn't exist. Earth Soul Stage? It was almost impossible. Even if there was, no one would be afraid. The robust man was slightly stunned. Clearly, he did not expect the other party to give such an answer. Moreover, it was so decisive. Looking at the backs of the 3 women, someone let out a sigh and said regretfully, "Another guy who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Not only did he harm himself, but such beauties were also taken advantage of by the Blood Crow King. Isn't that so? There are too many people who want to deal with the Blood Crow King. However, in all these years, who really succeeded? Didn't they all become ghosts in the end? Whispers were heard all around. The robust man looked at the door and frowned slightly as he fell into deep thought. In the next moment, he seemed to have made up his mind. He threw a handful of blue crystal coins on the table and followed them out. After Noah paid the bill, the 3 carriages were brought out from the backyard by the servants. Zichen boarded the carriage. As usual, he was the coachman of the 3 women. He could hear the laughter and banter inside. The Blood Crow King from before did not affect their good mood. Along the way, the lively atmosphere from yesterday was clearly no longer there. The surroundings were much quieter. Many people along the way were worried. Clearly, the bloodbath of the caravan and the news of the suspected appearance of the Blood Crow King had a great impact on them. They did not hesitate to affect their journey. These caravans that traveled this route all year round had sufficient guards before they set off. Under such circumstances, the caravan was still massacred. It was enough to show the strength of the bandits. As they moved forward, Zichen only saw those that entered the town. He did not see any of the caravans leaving. When those people saw them walking out of the town, a strange look appeared on their faces. Just as they were about to leave the town, Zichen suddenly turned back and saw that the robust man who had warned him was actually following them. He carried a sheathed long sword on his back and followed behind without the slightest intention of hiding. Zichen ignored him. After leaving the town, he sped up. When the robust man saw the direction Zichen was heading in, he muttered, "It's really the direction of Jinyuan City. Is he bold because he's skilled, or is he just a hothead who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth?" Looking at the carriage that was getting faster and faster, the robust man said, "Forget it. Let's follow them first." Just like that, they advanced for 100 miles. The others naturally noticed the robust man who had no intention of hiding, but all of them chose to ignore him. What should be done shall be done. At that moment, a whistling sound was heard and the robust man flew up to catch up. Zichen looked up at the sky. The robust man landed beside him and followed in the air. "Little brother, how about I be your guard?" The robust man went straight to the point. "There's no need." Zichen's voice was indifferent as he rejected decisively. "I know you're very confident in yourself, but that Blood Crow King is really powerful. He's at least at the human soul realm. Furthermore, he's not alone. He has an entire team that kills without batting an eyelid." The robust man said again, "I'll follow you and be your guard. You just have to give me a small reward." "There's no need." Zichen still rejected him firmly. "Then I don't need any reward. I can be your guard for free, right?" The robust man said indignantly, "Don't worry. Once danger happens, I'll definitely risk my life to protect your safety. Thank you, but there's no need." Zichen shook his head again. He looked at the robust man who was clearly unwilling to give up and said, "Don't you know the rules of this road? Once the team starts moving forward, there can't be any outsiders in the middle. With that said, the carriage began to speed up and overtook the robust man. The robust man was slightly taken aback before he fell silent. Has this become a rule? With a bitter smile, the robust man no longer tried to follow, but he did not leave either. Instead, he maintained a distance of 10,000 feet from Zichen's team. Zichen had been paying attention to the robust man at the back. From his actions and expression, he did not seem to have any ill intentions. However, Zichen clearly did not believe him. Just like Yi Yuan previously, the robust man did not have any ill intentions. Since he wanted to follow, then so be it. At night, everyone stopped. A bonfire rose as the few of them sat around it. 10,000 feet away, the robust man also stopped to rest. At the same time, he started a small bonfire. What's the background of that blood croaking? Looking at Ou Li, who was drinking earthen wine, Zichen asked the question he had previously. He's considered an extremely famous bandit. His combat strength is not weak. He's known for not leaving anyone alive. He kills people like flies and is full of evil. Ou Li put down the wine jar and said, he nurtured a team that belonged to him, called the Blood Crow Army. Everyone in it is ferocious. At that time, the caravans on this road were all in danger. Among the experts they hired, there was no lack of the human soul stage. However, there were still caravans that were attacked. As time passed, no one chased this road away. Therefore, a few cities issued a kill order and sent out a large number of troops to encircle and annihilate them. However, the effect was not obvious. After many rounds of encirclement and annihilation, the troops suffered heavy casualties. Ou Li paused for a moment before continuing. However, a few years ago, he suddenly disappeared from this road. The Blood Crow Army disappeared with him. At that time, there were many rumors. Among them, the most reliable and convincing one was that the Blood Crow King was dead and the Blood Crow Army was also encircled and annihilated. This road welcomed a rare peace that has lasted until today. Of course, the other bandits are not counted because they cannot be compared to the Blood Crow King. Ou Li spread out his hands and said, I didn't expect that after so many years, that fellow is still alive and has returned. Of course, it could also be another group of bandits who want to use this opportunity to establish their dominance. Following that, everyone chatted about some other matters. However, no one mentioned the man in his prime again. No matter what his goal was, as long as he did not attempt to approach them, they would let him be. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days passed. In these 2 days, no one encountered a single caravan. This was clearly abnormal on this bustling road until they saw blood. The thick smell of blood filled the surroundings. There were mutilated corpses everywhere and blood flowed like a river. Seeing this scene, one could not help but think of the incident at Kiara Mountain. Indeed, there was not a single kind-hearted person. There was not a single survivor. The carriage stopped. Zichen looked at the corpses in front of him with a gloomy expression. A caravan of a few hundred people was completely annihilated. There were also some children among them. Ou Li also alighted from the carriage. He looked ahead and said, even if it is not the Blood Crow King, it is still a group of ferocious fellows. Noah, who had also alighted from the carriage, looked at Zichen. Zichen said, bury them on the spot. At this moment, a voice came from behind. This is the Blood Crow King announcing his return. The corpses must not be touched. Otherwise, he will appear immediately. It was the man in his prime. He flew over and said, look down from above and see what is on the ground. Zichen stood there without moving. He did not look at the man in his prime. Instead, he looked ahead. That should be the direction the Blood Crow King left in. It is a blood-colored crow. Noah's voice came from the sky. It must be the Blood Crow King. Chapter 38:17. The blood on the ground fused together. Looking down from above, it looked like a blood crow spreading its wings. Zichen looked at the blood crow in silence. Everyone else had a heavy heart. It wasn't fear, but anger. That blood duck was drawn with the blood of innocent people. Old Tang was still sitting there without getting off the carriage. Even when he saw the blood and corpses, he was indifferent. Compared to the sentimental people, he had seen too many deaths and could face everything in the world calmly. Ou Li looked up into the sky and sighed. It's good to be young. He turned and walked towards the carriage. I can cry, I can throw a tantrum, I can love and I can hate. It's good to have a young heart. In the sky, Noah looked at Zi Chen. Are we still burying them? Zi Chen replied, rest in peace. The burly man looked at Zi Chen. If you touch these corpses, it's equivalent to challenging the Blood Crow King's authority. He won't let you off. Zi Chen did not say anything. Noah began descending. However, the moment he touched the corpses, the blood on the ground suddenly burned. Vaguely, there was a cry, as though a fire crow was about to soar into the sky. The burly man's expression changed as he exclaimed, it's a message. It's a message from the Blood Crow King. He'll be here soon. His body began trembling. It was not because of fear, but because of excitement. His eyes turned bright as he looked into the distance. There was a light in his eyes, as though he could see an endless future. There was an energy fluctuation ahead. Someone had appeared. The burly man strode forward and said without turning back, you guys can leave. The Blood Crow King is not to be underestimated. If he sees you guys, he will definitely not let you off. The aura around him began to release. Indeed, he was a human soul. A powerful aura began to surge. At that moment, the burly man was as eye-catching as a lighthouse in the night. The sheathed sword on his back began to tremble as it let out a faint, joyful sword hum. He left just like that without turning back. He left in a carefree manner with a hint of determination and solemnity. Old Tang glanced at the brawny man but didn't say anything. Ou Li's eyes were fixed on the other party. When the other party was about to disappear, he muttered, young people are hot-blooded and have the drive to fight. They can fight and die. You're not young anymore. Why are you so agitated? Why do you want to die? The burly man's sudden departure caused the few people to look at each other in dismay. But just as Ou Li had said, his resolute will to die was something that everyone could feel. For a moment, everyone looked at Zi Chen again. Let's go take a look. Zi Chen flew forward. Noah extinguished the flames, buried everyone, and followed them. Looking at them leaving, Old Tang said, aren't you going to take a look? Ou Li said, it's just a bandit. Do we need the elders to follow us? After advancing for tens of zhong, Zi Chen sensed a swift and fierce sword beam charging up into the sky. It felt as though the entire world was on the verge of splitting apart. After the first sword, another sword soared into the sky. It was likely the brawny man's sword. Even from a distance, the aura contained in the sword beam still made one's heart tremble. The other party was not only at the human soul realm, but also an impressive one. Asterisk 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 in an empty space, Pang Chang stood with his sword in hand. Blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth and his face was as pale as a sheet. That powerful aura from before had also weakened. Beside him were dozens of corpses. These corpses all had a common characteristic, they were all split into two and were incomplete. Among them, there were three that were particularly eye-catching. Even though they were already dead, they still emitted a heart-palpitating aura. The three of them were at the human soul realm. They were still alive a moment ago, but now, they were corpses. In just 2 strikes, he had killed 3 human soul realm experts and dozens of soul true realm experts. However, at that moment, Pang Chang's eyes were filled with indignation, or rather, shock. A person stood in front of him. That person was wearing a blood-red robe with a black crow embroidered on it. The crow's eyes were blood-red, as if it was a living creature that emitted a devouring glow. The person before him was the Blood Crow King. However, he looked like a young man, except that his lips were a little thin and his eyes were sharp. He looked a little mean. Around him stood nearly 100 blood-red robed people with cold expressions. They were the famous Blood Crow army that no one had seen before. The Blood Crow King came closer and sized Pang Chang up. His gaze was a little strange, as if he was looking at a rare treasure or a beloved toy. Not bad at all. Pang Chang gritted his teeth and wanted to mobilize his strength for another strike. However, at that moment, A blood-red glow appeared on his body and vaguely transformed into a crow. The crow began to struggle, and Pang Chang's face was filled with pain. It was as if he had been possessed by a crow spirit. Enduring the pain, Pang Chang said, "I've lost to you. You can kill me or cut me up as you wish." "Kill?" The Blood Crow King shook his head and said, "No, no, no. How can I bear to kill you? With such a good body, it would be a pity not to refine you into a blood corpse." Pang Chang spat out fiercely, and the blood in his mouth shot forward and landed on the Blood Crow King's face. The other party, who could have dodged, did not do so this time. Instead, he stuck out his long tongue and licked his face. He said with an intoxicated expression, "Not bad, it's still sweet." Pang Chang felt despair because he had just discovered the Blood Crow King's secret and finally understood why he was still alive despite being besieged by many factions. Unfortunately, he had discovered it too late. Furthermore, he would never have the chance to spread the news. "I can taste a familiar scent from your blood." The Blood Crow King looked at Pang Chang with a strange light in his eyes. "You, a human soul, did not hesitate to come here to kill me. I had some doubts before, but now I understand. You should know Pang Tianlin, right? The scent of the blood on both of you is the same." Hearing Pang Tianlin's name, Pang Chang's eyes were filled with madness as he became agitated. However, his face was soon filled with shame. With a thud, he knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times. He would never be able to take revenge in this lifetime. The Blood Crow King smiled. "There's no need for such formalities. I appreciate your intentions. Everyone says that I kill people like flies and never leave anyone alive. Actually, this is wrong. It's a misconception that the world has about me. Actually, you can testify for me because I once showed mercy and let someone go. That person is called Pang Tianlin. He should be your father, right?" The Blood Crow King bent down and looked at Pang Chang. "I wonder how your father has been recently. He should be dead. After all, his cultivation is gone. However, I feel that with his character, he's more suitable to be an ordinary person." On this trade route to the Holy Mountain, there was an unwritten rule. Once a team was formed, no outsiders were allowed to join in the middle. The reason for this rule was because of a story that everyone knew. The hero of the story was kind and allowed some pitiful people who had lost their family and belongings to join the team. Who knew that those people harbored evil intentions and actually set up a trap to frame them. In the end, the caravan was bathed in blood. The hero of the story, the leader of the guards, had his cultivation crippled and became an ordinary person. Then, his whereabouts were unknown. Everyone knew the story and everyone obeyed the rules. However, no one knew that the leader of the guards was called Pang Tianlin. Furthermore, no one knew that the villain of the story was the Blood Crow King. "You're his son, right?" The Blood Crow King looked at Pang Chang and said, "Actually, he didn't have to be so polite. Didn't I just spare his life? Although he didn't help me advertise, I've never hated him. Yet, he still so courteously sent you to my side. From now on, you'll be at my beck and call. How embarrassing is that?" Pang Chang stared at the Blood Crow King and said coldly, "You'll die a horrible death. Is that so?" The Blood Crow King smiled nonchalantly. "Then please stay by my side and watch how I die a horrible death in the future. Perhaps after thousands of years, your wish will come true. However, the prerequisite is that you must retain some rationality. Actually, it won't take thousands of years. He can see his wish come true now." Chapter 38:18. This indifferent voice suddenly rang out. Hearing this voice, Pang Chang was slightly taken aback because he recognized who that voice belonged to. Didn't they leave already? Previously, he could not sense their auras anymore and thought that these people had tactfully left. Thinking that he had indirectly saved a few people, he felt a little comforted. But why did they appear again? The voice sounded out. It was as if he had stepped into this space from another space, appearing so suddenly. It was Zi Chen and the other 5. Just as they appeared, the auras belonging to the 6 were sensed by the crowd. The Blood Crow King looked at Pang Chang in surprise and mocked, "I couldn't tell, you even found helpers. Not to mention other things, this concealment technique is quite surprising. You guys hurry up and leave, He has an immortal body, everyone here will. Ah. Pang Chang did not turn back and shouted anxiously, wanting to tell Zi Chen the secret he had just discovered. Unfortunately, just as he was speaking halfway, that crow appeared from his body again. The soul-tearing pain caused him to let out a scream, and he could not say anything else. Noisy. The Blood Crow King glanced at Pang Chang in an indifferent manner. Only then did he lift his head and look towards the sky. His gaze swept across the sky and was immediately attracted by the three ladies. For a moment, a glimmer of light appeared in his eerily cold eyes. He looked at the few of them as if he was looking at his beloved. At this moment, Zi Chen was also looking at the other party, while his soul power swept the surroundings to check the Blood Crow army. The Blood Crow army had a strong aura and cold expressions. Even when they saw the arrival of the few of them, there was no change in their expressions. Not bad at all. Almost all of them are of the highest quality. Seems like the heavens are looking after us, and the good deeds we did back then are finally paying off. The Blood Crow King said excitedly, "The ancients always say that good deeds will be rewarded with good deeds. It is indeed true, the ancients were not lying." Zi Chen also said at this moment, "Isn't it just raising a bunch of puppets? It's not a big secret. Why are you still hiding it like this?" There was a look of surprise in the Blood Crow King's eyes, and his excitement was slightly restrained. "You can even tell?" Zi Chen said, "It's just a small trick. This should be the secret of your immortality, right? But as long as we kill them all, I'd like to see how you're going to survive alone. As expected of jackals from the same tribe. Both of you boast so shamelessly." The Blood Crow King pointed at Pang Chang and sneered, saying in disdain, "He only used 2 swords previously and he can't be arrogant anymore. Let's see how long you guys can last." The Blood Crow King waved his hand, and someone immediately flew out from behind. It was 2 Blood Crow soldiers in the human soul realm. They were charging forward. Their auras were powerful, and a strange blood-red light was circulating around them. Looking at the 2 people rushing forward, Zi Chen didn't move, but Lan Jiumeng's figure rose into the air and went to a higher place. It didn't look like she was going to fight. The Blood Crow King was still smiling coldly, clearly intending to test their strength first. Lan Rui and the other 2 had not broken through yet, so they did not move. Shan Yue walked out. Her body shone brightly as the aura of a human soul was released. Sensing Shan Yue's aura, Pang Chang was slightly stunned. He hadn't expected her to be at the human soul realm as well. The Blood Crow King smiled. "Interesting." Shan Yue flew forward, fighting against 2 alone. The soul power that belonged to nothing surged out like a huge wave. The 2 human souls were immediately stopped, and the blood-red soul power that flowed around them seemed to be a little rusty. Shan Yue charged up and slapped down with 2 palms. Soul power coiled around her palms, and the 2 human souls were sent flying. The Blood Crow King's expression changed slightly, clearly not expecting Shan Yue's methods to be so brilliant. However, he smiled quickly. "Not bad. It's better to use it this way." Then, he looked at Zi Chen. "I wonder what methods you have now?" The temperature in the sky suddenly rose, becoming incomparably hot, as if it had turned from winter to summer. Sensing the abnormal temperature, Lan Rui immediately raised his head to look at the sky. He saw that there was a huge hole in the sky. Large clumps of flames kept appearing from the hole. They were like flaming meteors, howling as they fell. "Be careful," he cried out in warning. The flames that filled the sky whistled down, and the surrounding temperature continued to rise. In the sky, Lan Jiumeng moved back. She did not take the initiative to attack, choosing to dodge instead. These flaming meteors whistled down. Their target was Zi Chen and the 3 soul realm cultivators beside him. Zi Chen looked up at the sky, then extended his palm, as if he was holding up the sky. Soul power spread out from his palm, rippling in all directions until it completely enveloped the 4 of them. Shield appeared. The soul power condensed, and the light turned into a real shield. The flames landed on the shield, letting out banging sounds and sputtering continuously. All the flames were blocked outside. At this moment, Zi Chen's cultivation realm was completely displayed. Pang Chang was extremely shocked. He did not expect that there would be 2 human souls in this team of less than 10 people. Furthermore, their combat strength was not weak. Countless flames scattered in all directions, spreading down the sides of the shield like a curtain of fire. Zichen's figure soared into the sky, bringing the curtain of flames with him. The curtain of fire was extended infinitely, and an even more intense explosion sounded. All the flames that touched the shield were instantly shattered. Zichen held the shield and charged forward, crashing into the gap that could produce flames. Boom! A violent boom sounded, and a powerful shockwave spread out. The gap in the sky disappeared, and countless flames dissipated. The shield in Zichen's hand also dissipated into thin air. Die! He stood in the air as the flames around him dissipated. He stared at the Blood Crow King below, his eyes surging with cold, killing intent. The Blood Crow King sneered. If he was so easy to kill, he would have died countless times. At this moment, on the other side of the sky, Lan Jiyu Meng, who had not moved all this while, released her aura. She was the third human soul. A pair of blue wings appeared behind her. When the wings spread out, countless blue lights bloomed, looking extremely beautiful. However, within this beauty, there was an infinite danger. Her wings trembled slightly, and then countless feathers appeared. They were like arrows that filled the sky around her. This was the form of the divine soul goddess. In this state, Lan Jiyu Meng's aura was outstanding, and her eyes were cold. In the next moment, the arrow-like rain of light flew towards the surrounding Blood Crow army. Clearly, she did not intend to let any of them go. At the same time, Lan Rui, Noah, and Lan Hongyi also charged towards the Blood Crow army. "You're courting death." Seeing this scene, the Blood Crow King could no longer maintain his composure. If his Blood Crow army was destroyed today, not only would his many years of hard work be destroyed, he might even die. However, just as he moved, Zichen descended from the sky with a palm strike. A ray of light lit up the surroundings, and the palm strike was like a knife, dazzling and eye-catching. The Blood Crow King raised his hand to block, and with a loud bang, his body flew backwards. His soul was shaken, and all the muscles in his body were trembling. Zichen said, "Quick." He moved in a strange way, and quickly followed up with a punch. It was a combat technique that he had recently mastered, and he used it on the Blood Crow King for the first time. His punch landed on the Blood Crow King's chest, and ripples spread out. At the same time, the unique vibrating force entered the Blood Crow King's body. Blow after blow. Zichen kept attacking, and his body moved with the Blood Crow King, making it impossible for him to widen the distance between them. Chapter 38:19. Pang Chang felt that he was in a mess, the kind that was messy in the wind. He originally thought that he was being kind and could help them. He even said that he wanted to be their guard. After they rejected him, he felt that these people did not know what was good for them. He was not only in the human soul realm, but also a powerful human soul realm, but now he knew the reason. It was not that they did not know what was good for them, but that they looked down on him. The three human soul realm cultivators that appeared before him were not weaker than him in terms of combat power. Other than combat power, these people had good eyesight. Now, the Blood Crow army that the Blood Crow King was most proud of was dying one after another. Few people could dodge the blue arrow that shot forward. As for the Blood Crow King, he was being chased and beaten. He looked like he could not fight back at all. "Kill him." The Blood Crow King, who was unable to break free from Zichen, shouted angrily. Immediately, a powerful aura appeared in the Blood Crow army. Another human soul realm cultivator had appeared. This time, there were 5 of them. Pang Chang was shocked. Only now did he know how ridiculous his death wish looked. They were not even on the same level. He came here to die. Even if the Blood Crow King did not have the means of immortality, he would not be able to kill him alone. 5 human soul realm cultivators appeared and moved forward. Lan Jiyu Meng did not move. A light appeared beside her. It was the sword. The name of this sword was the soul-shattering sword. It had once come to him on its own, and it had even squeezed out that extraordinary blue sword. However, at that time, its grade was very low. It was equivalent to Lan Gumeng's cultivation level at that time, Soul Emptiness Realm. But with Lan Jiyu Meng's breakthrough, the grade of the sword was also increasing. It was now no weaker than a normal human soul realm weapon. It shot forward like a bolt of lightning towards a human soul realm cultivator. The other party's body flashed with a blood-red light, forming a defense to block the sword. When the sword light met the defense, it created ripples. It was as if there was a strange power that came out of the sword and instantly penetrated the human soul realm cultivator's defense. It did not even block for a moment. The sword light once again pierced through the other party's chest. The aura of the human soul realm expert immediately weakened. Their comrade was heavily injured, but the expressions of the other four didn't change at all. They didn't even slow down as they continued to attack Lan Jiu Meng. Suddenly, a powerful aura appeared behind the four of them. It was Shan Ya. Her two previous opponents were already seriously injured. Zi Chen did not look at the battlefield behind him, nor did he take out his holy talisman to help everyone. It was as if he did not care about everyone's life and death as he focused on fighting the Blood Crow King. Every time the two sides made contact, the Blood Crow King would feel a strange vibration force enter his body, making him feel uncomfortable. Both his strength and speed would be affected. However, it would not affect his life. Are you trying to stall for time? Stop dreaming. Feeling the gradual disappearance of the Blood Crow army's aura, the Blood Crow King was enraged. If he was delayed by the other party, he would really die here today. The soul power on his body was instantly stimulated. The crow on his blood-red robe seemed to be coming to life. Following that, a powerful aura appeared from it. The crow actually came to life. It flew out of the blood-red robe and headed straight for Zi Chen. Zi Chen's fist landed, and the vibration force spread. The crow let out a shrill cry and then dispersed. The Blood Crow King took the opportunity to retreat, widening the distance between him and Zi Chen. His eyes became extremely cold, and he did not hide his killing intent. Go to hell! He formed a seal with his hands, and the blood-red soul power began to circulate, converging towards the sky. A blood-red crow appeared. It was dozens of feet long, like a real crow, and it let out a caw. In an instant, ripples surged, and sound waves entered Zi Chen's mind, seemingly affecting his soul. Zi Chen's vision blurred. It was as if he saw countless mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and above them stood a huge crow. Just as this illusion appeared, Zi Chen's soul power began to circulate on its own, and streaks of lightning were faintly discernible in his body. In an instant, the illusion disappeared, and Zi Chen saw the real crow flying towards him. Zi Chen took a deep breath and clenched his right fist. The soul power on his fist began to converge, and a powerful aura spread out. It was another combat technique. The Blood Crow King saw that Zi Chen's eyes had regained their clarity, and he had begun to accumulate power. There was a hint of surprise in his cold eyes. His soul attainments were extremely high, and it was also his proudest technique. He did not expect that he would not be able to confuse the other party. Bang! The fist hit the crow's head, and countless ripples surged out. Zi Chen's body retreated several feet in the air, and the crow also let out a strange cry as it was repelled far away. The Blood Crow King's mouth twitched. The other party actually used his fist to block the Blood Crow's attack. This was too unbelievable. The current battle situation was extremely unfavorable to him, and this caused his expression to change. His gaze swept across other places. Almost half of the Blood Crow army had died, and there was no weakling among them. A strong threat rose in his heart, and he no longer dared to be careless. His hand seals were formed again, and another blood-red light soared into the sky, entering the Blood Crow's body. The Blood Crow's body began to burn, and the surrounding temperature suddenly rose. A terrifying aura filled every corner of the area. It was obvious that the Blood Crow King had used a powerful technique. Feeling the aura from the Blood Crow, Zi Chen did not dare to be careless. A light flashed in his hand, and the long rod that everyone thought was a holy soul weapon appeared. Soul power was injected, and the patterns on the long rod lit up one by one, but only half of it lit up. The long rod was trembling, and a powerful aura was released. The Blood Crow let out a cry, and flew up again. A blazing wave of fire came head-on, and there was a burnt smell in the air. Zi Chen held the long rod tightly, and took a step forward. At this moment, the void shook, as if it was going to be crushed by Zi Chen. He smashed down with the rod. A clear mark appeared, and the space seemed to be divided into two. The long rod fell, and once again smashed on the blood crow's head. This time, the blood crow's strange cry turned into a mournful scream, and its huge body exploded with a bang. One rod, smashed to death. Blood flowed out from the blood crow king's mouth, and his expression changed drastically. He looked at Zi Chen in shock, not expecting him to be so powerful. I underestimated you, but you won't be so lucky next time. A bloody light flashed on the blood crow king's body, and this time, he transformed into a blood crow, as if he was one with his soul, and looked extremely strange. Moreover, his aura was even stronger than the burning blood crow from before. Looking at the opponent's desperate posture, Zi Chen took a deep breath. On his left hand, a light flowed, and a real long rod materialized from energy appeared. It was a type of combat technique. In the next moment, Zi Chen put his left and right hands together, and the two long rods also merged together. The Blood Crow King rushed forward, carrying a vast aura, like a fierce wave of fire. Zi Chen's rod fell, and his aura was heavy like a mountain. The mountain blocked the spread of the wave of fire. Chapter 38:20. The battle had already happened and no one cared about Pang Chang. As he was under the Blood Crow King's curse, he could not run away. He was a spectator. The only spectator here. He looked up at the sky and saw the figure holding the rod. His eyes were filled with shock. His mind was constantly attacked and even the pain from the curse seemed to have lessened. He saw that the Blood Crow King was enraged and used a powerful move. However, Zi Chen only used two rods to end the battle. The first rod, Blood Crow Explosion. The second rod, Blood Crow King Explosion. Blood rained down from the sky, announcing the Blood Crow King's death. However, was he really dead? Right then, a cold voice sounded. I'm immortal. Do you think you can kill me? It was the Blood Crow King's voice. He could transform into thousands of people. At this moment, a Soul Void Realm Blood Crow army member's face started to change and became the Blood Crow King. At the same time, his cultivation level started to rise. It was like a body takeover, but there were no signs of weakness. One had to admit that the Blood Crow King's methods were very unique. However, to Zi Chen, it was just giving the other party an extra life. It was just another rod. With a loud bang, the second Blood Crow King died. I said, I'm immortal. I'll never die. The third Blood Crow King appeared. Zi Chen dashed forward and raised his rod. As expected, the third Blood Crow King disappeared. Immediately after, the fourth, fifth, and sixth appeared. No matter which Blood Crow King it was, they could not escape from Zi Chen's rod. Pang Chang looked at this scene and felt a little dazed. Such a powerful attack should consume a lot of energy. However, looking at Zi Chen's expression, it seemed like he was not affected at all. At this moment, Pang Chang finally understood what it meant to be powerful. On this trade route, the Blood Crow King was full of evil and his name could intimidate many forces. However, he was beaten to the point that he could not fight back. His Blood Crow army was being massacred. The ferocious opponent had finally met a formidable opponent today. The Blood Crow army was dwindling, and the Blood Crow King was gradually becoming impatient. Zi Chen was always able to kill him the moment he appeared. In the end, the Blood Crow King no longer dared to show himself and could only hide within the Blood Crow army. Zi Chen began to kill the Blood Crow army. With his participation, the speed of the slaughter became even faster. Countless crows flew up, their bodies emitting a bloody light as they charged towards Zi Chen. As they neared, the blood crows exploded, forming a terrifying destructive power. The Blood Crow King who appeared looked at Zi Chen, who was drowned by blood crows, as a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The others were still fighting, not paying any attention to this side, or it could be said that they didn't care at all. A staff shadow suddenly soared into the sky, splitting the blood crows in front into two. A safe passage appeared, and Zi Chen walked out from it. The smile on the Blood Crow King's face froze. Zi Chen moved forward with his cudgel and swung it down again. As expected, the Blood Crow King failed to block it. Zi Chen's face was a little pale. After continuously killing the Blood Crow King, he had indeed consumed a lot of energy. If not for his extremely condensed soul power and special cultivation technique, he wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Fortunately, the Blood Crow army was less than 1/10 of its members, and it wouldn't take much more than a few hits from Zichen. As for the human souls from before, they were all killed by Shan Ya and Lan Jiu Meng. Moreover, Shan Ya had yet to use her most powerful technique. This battle was only a waste of time, and there was no danger at the moment. The Blood Crow King that everyone was terrified of was actually not a threat to them. The battle was about to end. Another group of Blood Crows soared into the sky, but this time, they didn't attack. Instead, they flew in all directions. The Blood Crow King was about to escape. Pang Chang was extremely agitated when he saw this. He naturally didn't expect that the Blood Crow King would be in such a sorry state one day. Looking at the blood crows that soared into the sky, Zichen smiled coldly. In the next moment, countless holy talismans soared into the sky and exploded, turning into terrifying thunderbolts. The thunderbolts descended densely, landing on the blood crows. Rumbling sounds rang out as powerful shockwaves spread in all directions. Not a single blood crow escaped. When the energy dissipated, there was only one person left in the field. The Blood Crow King. His face was pale and there was no longer any arrogance in his eyes, only fear. He looked at Zichen. "Can you let me go? I can give you all my wealth." Zichen looked at the Blood Crow King and said, "Are you begging me?" The Blood Crow King nodded repeatedly. "That's right, I'm begging you. As long as you let me go, other than all my wealth, I can also give you my Blood Crow technique. I guarantee that you won't die in the future." Zichen smiled coldly and said, "You know when to yield and when to stand tall. You really have the potential to be a formidable person." The Blood Crow King said, "You flatter me. As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. There's no grudge between us. Let me go and you can get all my wealth. Even if you want fame, I can give it to you. After this, I'll announce to the public that I lost to you and let your reputation soar." Pang Chang looked over, his gaze as cold as lightning. When the Blood Crow King was left with his last body, the curse that had been cast on him was automatically removed. He was now free, but he didn't leave. Zichen said, "I heard you say that good deeds will be rewarded with good deeds." The Blood Crow King nodded again, a smile appearing on his pale face. "That's right. Good deeds will be rewarded with good deeds. Let me go and you guys are good people. There will definitely be good deeds in the future. Looks like you only remember the first half of the sentence but not the second half." Zichen's eyes turned extremely cold and killing intent appeared. "The second half is evil deeds will be rewarded with evil deed." After saying that, he raised his long rod. The Blood Crow King's expression changed and he cried out, "I'm willing to give you everything, but you're still not willing to let me go? I believe you've heard this sentence many times, right? Those people who you robbed, when they said this sentence, have you ever thought of letting them go? Good deeds will be rewarded with evil deeds. The time has come." The rod smashed down with a shrill whistle. With another boom, the Blood Crow King turned into a bloody mist. Only a blood-red robe that had always been with him was left in the world. The crow embroidered on it became extremely dim. It was over. It was all over. Pang Chang, who had been looking over, knelt down with a thud and kowtowed to the east. "Father, I've avenged you." Then, he got up and bowed to Zichen. "Pang Chang will never forget your life-saving grace." Zichen glanced at Pang Chang and said, "Good deeds will be rewarded with good deeds and evil deeds with evil deeds. It's not that there won't be any, it's just that the time hasn't come yet. Your father is very kind and kind people are often very noble. It's his kindness and nobility back then that saved you today." After saying that, Zichen turned and left. Noah pointed to the long robe floating in the air and asked, "What should we do with this?" "Bring it back and take a look." "What about these corpses?" Chapter 38-21. When Zichen's group of 6 returned, Old Tang was drinking with Ou Li and did not seem to be worried about them at all. As they approached, Ou Li finished the wine in the jar. He stood up, patted his butt, and burped. Then, he got into the carriage. They continued forward. When they passed by the corpses, Ou Li deliberately took a detour and did not step on them. Or rather, he did not want to see them. Pang Chang walked behind. He had struck twice with shocking might previously. After being hit by the curse, his condition became problematic. Right now, he had become very weak, and it seemed that even walking had become difficult. The carriage in front suddenly stopped. Ou Li turned around and brought Pang Chang along. They did not speak along the way. Asterisk 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 in a hidden mountain forest, ripples suddenly appeared on an inconspicuous mountain peak. The ripples turned into a passageway, and a person walked out from it. It was the Blood Crow King who was supposed to be dead. At that moment, he stood on the peak and looked into the distance with cold killing intent surging in his eyes. I've told you guys before that I'm immortal. I'll spare your lives for now. Once I recover my vitality, I'll definitely refine you guys into blood corpses. You probably won't have that chance. An old voice suddenly sounded from behind the Blood Crow King. The Blood Crow King's expression changed drastically. He turned around immediately and saw a white-haired old man standing behind him. Who are you? He stared at the other party with a nervous expression because this was his hiding place. The reason why he could not be killed despite being surrounded for so many years was because he had this backup plan. Furthermore, this was a hidden place where no one else knew about it apart from him. The old man said with a pleasant expression, "My surname is Wu. You can call me Steward Wu." Looking at this unfathomable old man, the Blood Crow King asked nervously, "May I know why Steward Wu is here?" Steward Wu smiled. "Naturally, it's to solve my young master's problems." The Blood Crow King asked in confusion, "Who is your young master?" Lan Rui, the future successor of the Lan family. The successor of the Lan family? The Blood Crow King was shocked. Even though this place was not far from Saint Mountain, he had heard of the famous Lan family. Hence, he asked again, "I've never seen your young master before. Why is he looking for me?" "Actually, you guys have met before. It's just that you don't know him. For young master's future safety, you must die." As soon as he finished speaking, the aura of an earth soul exploded from Steward Wu's body. That abyss-like aura suppressed the Blood Crow King to the point that he could not breathe. Before he died, he only had time to let out a cry of surprise. Earth soul. Asterisk 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 asterisk. The sky darkened, and the carriage stopped. After they alighted from the carriage, Pang Chang's condition had recovered a little. When he saw Zi Chen, he cupped his fists toward Zi Chen and thanked him. Zi Chen waved his hand, indicating that there was no need to be so courteous. After learning of Pang Chang's motive for revenge, Zi Chen's impression of him changed. Previously, when the other party reminded them at the inn, he didn't have any ill intentions. On the way here, he sincerely expressed that he wanted to be their guard. Even when the other party was determined to fight to the death, he didn't forget to remind them to leave. Such a person was rare nowadays. Zi Chen didn't think he could be so calm and open-minded. As the bonfire rose, the few of them sat together. No one asked about Pang Chang's past, although everyone was curious about his father. Pang Chang's injuries had yet to recover, so he was mostly recuperating. The others were chatting and laughing. Zi Chen glanced at Old Tang, wanting to say something but hesitated. "If you have something to say, say it." Old Tang sat beside the bonfire and was responsible for adding firewood. "Help me take a look at this. Is there a problem?" Zi Chen took out the blood-red robe. Noah gave it to him after he returned. Old Tang glanced at it and said, "Didn't you take a look at it?" Zi Chen said, "I took a look. There's no problem, but I'm still worried." "There's no need to take another look. There's indeed no problem. It's an ownerless item." After receiving Old Tang's confirmation, Zi Chen didn't feel relieved. Instead, he frowned. After pondering for a moment, he whispered, "I suspect that the Blood Crow King isn't dead." The few of them looked at Zi Chen. Even Pang Chang, who had recovered from his injuries, opened his eyes and looked at Zi Chen. "Why do you say that?" Old Tang was surprised. "If it were me, I would definitely leave a backup plan for myself." Zi Chen said, "When one goes out, there will always be various dangers that one can't resolve. It's naturally good to have an extra life-saving plan. Moreover, it's not difficult for him. Pang Chang's eyes flashed because this possibility was very high. The other people's faces were also filled with astonishment. It wasn't impossible. Ou Li smiled faintly and said, "Isn't that good? Even if he appears again, he will be beaten up again. Isn't it good to have someone to practice with?" Zi Chen said, "If he doesn't die this time, he will definitely be troublesome in the future. Without the Blood Crow army, he will kill more innocent people." After seeing the Blood Crow army, Zi Chen knew that it wasn't that the Blood Crow King didn't leave anyone alive, but that he turned all of them into puppets. Old Tang smiled faintly and said, "You don't have to worry about this kind of thing. You're all alone. Just take care of yourself." A jar of clay wine appeared in his hand and he threw it out. It wasn't for Zi Chen, but for Lan Rui. Lan Rui subconsciously caught the clay wine and was slightly stunned. "It's on me. You've worked hard today," Old Tang said. Zi Chen said thoughtfully, "I've also put in a lot of effort. I should at least get a jar, right? Take out the money, or there's nothing to talk about." When Zi Chen heard that, he was in a good mood and said directly, "Other than Lan Rui, everyone else will get a jar." "Hey, Zi Chen, isn't this a little too much?" Lan Rui said with some dissatisfaction. "You're secretly happy that you can drink it for free." As expected, Zi Chen paid the blue crystal coins and Old Tang gave everyone a jar, including Pang Chang. Old Tang even gave himself a jar. Zi Chen did the math. That night, Zi Chen was in a good mood. Because he no longer had to worry about anything. He drank 3 jars of wine, laid on the ground, and looked up at the sky. He sighed in his heart. It was good to have a family behind him. There would be someone to take care of everything. He had the world, friends, and people he liked. The only thing he didn't have was a family. The Holy Thunder clan might count, but it also didn't count. Will there be a Zi Chen clan in the Saint Spirit realm one day? Such a thought flashed through Zi Chen's mind before he passed out drunk. It took a full 5 days for Pang Chang's injuries to fully recover. This made Zi Chen completely relieved. He would only be severely injured when the Blood Crow King was truly dead. Fortunately, they appeared in time. If Pang Chang was really refined back then, he wouldn't be alive. Chapter 38-22. Jinyuan City was a much bigger and more lively city than Luowei City. It was a hubbub of voices, and even the entrance fee was slightly higher. However, it was still an endless stream of people and carriages. It was the first time Zi Chen and the others had come to this city. Pang Chang had been here several times because of revenge. He took the initiative to act as a guide for Zi Chen and introduced the local conditions and customs of this city. When Pang Chang talked about delicious food, Ou Li said, "My mouth has been bland recently. Let's go and have a good meal." While speaking, his eyes looked at Zi Chen. Zi Chen said, "Why are you looking at me? You're the boss. If I don't look at you, who should I look at?" Ou Li said indifferently, "Boss? Am I the boss in your eyes? I think you're just paying for it, right?" Zi Chen said grumpily, "It's all the same." "All right then. Let's find a place to eat. Don't mind me. Let's go to the undrunk restaurant that Pang Chang mentioned just now. I think the name is quite suitable for the occasion. It's quite poetic." Looking at Ou Li's slightly intoxicated expression, Zi Chen couldn't help but curl his lips. What poetic? He just took a fancy to the wine brewed in that restaurant. Zi Chen looked at the others. They naturally had no objections. Walking around and eating delicious food, in Ou Li's words, was also suitable for the occasion. Last time in Luowei City, Zi Chen had exchanged a lot of resources for blue crystal coins. Although he didn't dare to say that he was rich, he was still a wealthy family. He didn't care about a meal or two. When they arrived at the undrunk restaurant, they saw many people going in and out. The business was very good. There was a beautiful woman at the door. After seeing Zi Chen and the others, she immediately greeted them warmly. However, her eyes deliberately lingered on the 3 women. They followed the woman into the restaurant and went straight to the 2nd floor. The 2nd floor was filled with cubicles that weren't directly sealed. They could hear the sound of drinking games coming from all around. After they took their seats, Ou Li said directly, "Bring out your best wine. 1 jug for each of us." The woman who led them here had a trace of surprise in her eyes. Are you sure? 1 jug for each of us? Or is it our undrunk pavilion's best undrunk immortal? Ou Li said without hesitation, that's right, that's it. The woman smiled and turned to leave, not giving Zi Chen any time to think. Pang Chang opened his mouth and clicked his tongue. Although he was in the human soul stage, he had traveled extensively over the years and had come to Jinyuan City a few times. However, he had never drunk the drunken immortal wine because 1 bottle cost 1,000 blue crystal coins. He silently counted the number of people and wanted to remind Zi Chen. Ou Li said, Brother Pang, have you tried the drunken immortal before? No. Pang Chang shook his head. Then you have to taste it properly, or else you'll miss it. Who knows when we'll come again? Ou Li said, if we pass this village, there won't be another shop like this. Zi Chen didn't say anything. His attention was attracted by the discussion next door. Very soon, the woman from before walked over with the 9 jars of undrunk immortal. As the seals were opened one by one, a rich wine fragrance spread in all directions. Ou Li took a big gulp and said, serve the signature dishes. The boss is treating us today. The woman looked around, and the others all looked at Zi Chen in unison. Zi Chen didn't respond. He was still listening to the conversation next to him. The woman smiled, but unfortunately, Zi Chen couldn't appreciate it. Let me tell you, I'm going to the sacred mountain soon. I can't guarantee anything else, but it won't be a problem for me to be recognized by the sacred mountain. Another voice was heard. This time, the others also heard it clearly, and their expressions changed. The fact that they were discussing in a restaurant meant that the news of the sacred heavenly mirror's opening had spread. Zi Chen glanced at Ou Li and asked, how long will it take to reach the sacred mountain? Ou Li unhurriedly took a sip of wine and said, according to our current speed, it will probably take another 5 months. 5 months. Zi Chen's eyes widened. The news had spread for so long. If they walked for another 5 months, it would be too late. Ou Li said, even if we travel day and night, it will still take 3 months. Pang Chang's expression changed a little. Through the conversation between the two, he knew that these people weren't coming to Jinyuan City. They were just passing by, and their ultimate goal was the sacred mountain. We have to speed up. Zi Chen pondered for a moment and said, because they had delayed for too long. Ou Li shook his head and said, I'm afraid that won't work. My body is too weak. I'm afraid I won't be able to bear it. Zi Chen had the urge to slap Ou Li to death. Ou Li, who knew martial arts, was definitely one of the best in terms of physical strength among these people. How could his body not be able to bear it just by traveling? 1 jar of earthen wine a day. Zi Chen said, lead the way if you can. If you can't, we'll go by ourselves. Ou Li said, earthen wine is good, but you can't drink it often. Take some undrunk immortal with you when you leave. Otherwise, we won't talk about it. Okay. Zi Chen was very anxious to reach the sacred mountain as soon as possible, so he didn't argue with Ou Li. In addition, he had also collected a lot of spoils from the battle with the Blood Crow King. If they were exchanged for blue crystal coins, it would be a large number. However, after eating, Zi Chen was completely dumbfounded when he went to pay the bill. Are you sure? Zi Chen looked at the other party. This meal actually cost as much as 15,000 blue crystal coins. One must know that when they first came to this world and stayed in Ted's house, they only spent a few blue crystal coins a day. When he wrote a holy talisman, he could only sell it for a few dozen blue crystal coins. The person in charge of the restaurant, a beautiful woman, said with a smile, we are all giving a clear price. We don't cheat anyone. Zi Chen looked at the bill and was speechless. Just the undrunk immortal cost 1,000 blue crystal coins. It was even more expensive than some soul weapons. Give me 30 more jars of undrunk immortal. Pack it up and take it away. Zi Chen said after putting down the bill. Okay. The beautiful woman smiled and motioned for the others to go and prepare. Zi Chen took out nearly 50,000 blue crystal coins and left the undrunk immortal under the warm escort of the waiters. It was rare to see such a big customer. Pang Chang, who was following behind Zi Chen, was a little speechless. This was because this meal had at least consumed dozens of low-grade soul weapons. The group stayed in the city for a day and bought some ingredients during this time. They then set off again. Pang Chang, who was supposed to leave, didn't and followed them out. He no longer had any obsession and decided to go to the sacred mountain to have a look. After learning from Zi Chen that the sacred heavenly mirror was about to open, he also wanted to try his luck. The news had indeed spread. Just as Zi Chen and the others were hurrying, in Jinyuan City, many forces left the city and went to the sacred mountain. At the same time, in the surrounding cities of the sacred mountain, various forces received the news and rushed to the sacred mountain. Chapter 38-23. Along the way, the group obviously sped up. Apart from the rest time, they traveled day and night. Fortunately, the exotic beasts had enough stamina and could adapt to this pace. Ou Li, on the other hand, was unhappy and grumbled a little. However, Zi Chen naturally had Tu Yang and Bu Zuixian to deal with him. 2 days later, a group of people flew past them. It was obvious that they were hurrying on with their journey. Zi Chen was envious. He had warned Ou Li several times, but the other party always said that they were in no hurry. If they traveled day and night at this speed, they would save a lot of time. There weren't many people in that group, only a dozen or so. Less than an hour after they overtook Zi Chen's group, they suddenly turned back and retreated. The leader of the group was a young man. He was riding on a majestic and somewhat peculiar exotic beast, and he was heading towards them. Ou Li, who was walking in front, immediately slowed down. He looked into the distance and saw the approaching young man. Sensing the unfriendly aura coming from the other party, he said with a smile, "There's wine to drink again. Let's stop and rest for a while." Thus, the group stopped just like that. Ou Li's hand reached out of the shaft of the carriage. Usually, at this time, Zi Chen, who was following closely behind, would throw a bottle of wine over. However, there was nothing this time. Ou Li stood up in confusion and looked at Zi Chen. Zi Chen was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. "It's noon now, why are you stopping? Drinking wine? Why don't you go drink piss?" At this time, the young man had already approached with his group. He rode on a tall exotic beast and looked down at Ou Li in front, saying, "Are you going to the sacred mountain too?" Zi Chen recognized the other party's voice. It was the voice he heard at Bu Zui restaurant yesterday. He frowned slightly, not knowing what the other party meant. "Little brother, you're right. You have a good eye." Ou Li gave a thumbs up and praised. "Who's your little brother? Watch your words when speaking to my young master." A middle-aged man behind the young man, who was obviously a guard, said coldly. At this time, Pang Chang had already stuck his head out and looked ahead. The young man said indifferently, "Go back immediately and I can spare your lives. Otherwise, you'll die." Pang Chang's eyes flickered coldly. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Ou Li nodded and said, "All right, watch carefully. I'll turn around now." A disdainful smile appeared on the young man's face. "Do you think trash like you deserve to go to the sacred mountain?" Ou Li suddenly stopped what he was doing and said with a bitter face, "This handsome young man, I'm really sorry, but what you say doesn't count." "What did you say?" The young man's eyes were filled with cold killing intent. "Little brother, it's not up to you to decide. It's up to my lord to decide whether to return or not." Ou Li pointed behind and said, "My lord is in the carriage behind us." "Oh, it's the coachman. There are 3 peerless beauties in the carriage. He said he would protect them all the way to the sacred mountain." Pang Chang looked at Ou Li, who was beside him. He had never seen through this existence before, and now, his performance was a little too lacking. "Beauty, flower protector? Mph, tell him to scram immediately and leave the beauty behind." The young man snorted. Ou Li said, "I'm afraid that won't do. My lord paid me to lead the way. How can I tell him to scram? Why don't you go and reason with him? If he agrees, I'll leave immediately." Pang Chang couldn't bear to listen anymore. He immediately walked out of the carriage and began to release his aura. The moment the aura of the human soul stage was released, the expressions of the people in front changed, but that was all. "Everyone, the path is here. Anyone can take it. Why can't we pass? Pang Chang stood in front of the carriage with a domineering aura. The young man glanced at Pang Chang, then waved his hand and said, "Teach him how to behave properly." With that, he ignored Pang Chang and walked towards Zi Chen at the back. Zi Chen glared at the other party coldly. Right now, he was filled with anger. "Kid, scram immediately and leave the beauty in the carriage." Hearing the young man's words, Zi Chen wanted to beat him up. At this moment, a cry of surprise came from behind. A sharp sword aura soared into the sky, and the three human soul stage cultivators immediately retreated until they were thousands of feet away. Fear was written all over their faces. Pang Chang's body rose into the air, and the soul sword in his hand released a strong light. The second sword slashed out. A white mark appeared between heaven and earth, as if the entire space was about to be cut open. The remaining people immediately retreated. After the two sword slashes, everyone except the young man retreated thousands of feet away. Among them, there were 4 human soul stage cultivators, and the rest were soul stage cultivators. Clearly, they were a force to be reckoned with. "You're courting death." The young man who wanted to cause trouble for Zi Chen flew into a rage and immediately charged towards Pang Chang. Zi Chen stood in front of the carriage, and the anger on his face dissipated a little. Pang Chang was still the reliable one. Ou Li was simply inhuman. Apart from exploiting him, he didn't know how to do anything. Pang Chang struck again. The third sword. Back when he fought the Blood Crow King, he only struck twice, but the power of those 2 strikes was much stronger than before. It was a matter of life and death. Although the third sword was powerful, it only had the intention to repel and not kill. It was clearly not Pang Chang's character to kill without a word. However, this time, the young man did not retreat. Instead, he charged forward, prepared to take the sword head-on. The exotic beast he was riding suddenly lit up, and its front paws immediately became crystal clear, like a piece of jade, blocking in front of him. With a loud bang, the sword chi was blocked by the mutated beast, and the young man's figure soared into the sky, charging towards Pang Chang who was approaching. As he moved forward, he formed a seal with his hands, and a light seal appeared in front of him in all directions with a heavy aura. After the sword light was blocked, Pang Chang's expression did not change, and he struck for the 4th time. Buzz! The void trembled, and the sword light illuminated the world. Then, there was another boom. Pang Chang retreated a full 1,000 feet, his face a little pale, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Meanwhile, the young man stood in the air, looking at him indifferently. The mutated beast stood beside him. After blocking Pang Chang's attack previously, it did not suffer any damage. Ou Li, who was originally indifferent and waiting to watch a good show, raised his head and glanced at the mutated beast with a strange look in his eyes. Even old Tang raised his eyelids, sizing up the exotic beast a little more. The expressions of Zi Chen and those who saw this scene through the curtain changed slightly. They had seen Pang Chang's combat strength with their own eyes. Even if the power of the sword was restrained, it was still extremely powerful. However, it was blocked by a mutated beast mount. Moreover, it was unscathed. Obviously, this mutated beast was very extraordinary. At the very least, its physical strength had surpassed most people in the human soul realm. Pang Chang was also very surprised by his opponent's strength. In his opinion, this young man must be a good-for-nothing from an aristocratic family. He did not expect him to have such strength. After just one exchange, he had already suffered light injuries. However, he was obviously not defeated. He took a step forward, and the void trembled, and a powerful aura surged out from his body. "Try taking another sword strike of mine." The long sword in his hand trembled, and with a sword hum, an unparalleled sword chi shot out from the sword. Pang Chang stabbed forward with his sword. This time, he had used all his strength. Obviously, he did not dare to underestimate his opponent. Unexpectedly, the young man still did not move in the face of this sword strike. The mutated beast moved forward. This time, the mutated beast let out a furious roar, and its body immediately became incomparably huge, like a giant beast. This time, its entire body turned into jade. From afar, it looked like a jade statue, mighty and ferocious. As the claw fell, The space seemed to be torn apart, and a sharp whistle sounded. There was a bang. The sword chi shattered, but the mutated beast did not slow down. It charged directly at Pang Chang and clawed at him again. Pang Chang blocked with his sword. Clang! The sharp claw landed on the long sword, and with a clang, Pang Chang was directly sent flying. More blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Lie down. Suddenly, the young man's voice sounded in Pang Chang's ear, but he had unknowingly appeared beside him. With another bang, Pang Chang's body smashed into the ground. After landing, Pang Chang coughed up blood and his face turned pale. Defeated. Ou Li slapped his forehead and said, "You're too pitiful. You stood up for others, but they didn't appreciate your kindness. Look, you've been beaten up so badly, but they're still watching the show." It was obvious that he was scolding indirectly. Zi Chen was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He could not wait to go up and beat Ou Li up. Ever since they set off, this guy seemed to have taken the wrong medicine. He was unwilling to hurry along and caused a lot of trouble. "Are you going to get lost? If you don't, this will be your fate." The young man did not immediately kill him. Instead, he looked at Zi Chen and said indifferently, "I'll King get lost." Zi Chen was really angry. It was one thing for Ou Li to cause trouble here, but who do you think you are? How dare you cause trouble here? Whoosh! Zi Chen's figure soared into the sky, and the aura of the human soul realm erupted. Sensing the aura of the other party, the young man said disdainfully, "You're not even as good as that guy who defeated you in one move." Zi Chen rushed forward, gradually releasing his aura. Suddenly, a heavy aura came from the front. It was the exotic beast that blocked in front of him. Its sharp claws whistled down, bringing with it a strong whistling sound. "Get lost!" Zi Chen shouted angrily, and his eyes were extremely cold. Ou Li chuckled and picked his ear, saying, "There's no such move in the martial arts." In front of Zi Chen, a brilliance flowed and turned into a light shield. The light Dun Li immediately became solid and blocked in front of him. At the same time, he clenched his right fist. Countless streaks of soul power gathered on his right fist, and lightning flashed. The exotic beast's attack landed on the light shield. The light shield trembled slightly, and in the next moment, it shattered. The young man nodded with satisfaction. His exotic beast was the key to going to the sacred mountain. It had no problem suppressing a human soul realm cultivator. First, it broke the defense, then it was defeated. The young man's idea was excellent, but the reality was cruel. Before its attack landed, Zi Chen's fist had already arrived. The small fist exploded with great power. It was as if thunder had exploded in front of him. With a loud boom, countless lightning snakes danced in the air. The exotic beast that was as huge as a mountain flew into the distance. It was actually sent flying by a punch. Chapter 38-24. Time seemed to stop for a moment. The smile on the young man's face froze and his eyes widened. His emerald-eyed jade fire beast was sent flying just like that. And it was sent flying with a single punch. Even Ou Li, who was watching the show, was stunned. He naturally wasn't worried about Zi Chen, but he didn't expect Zi Chen to be able to send that big guy flying with a single punch without using a soul weapon. But when he saw Zi Chen's reddened fist, he was relieved. It seemed that the pain wasn't light. Speaking of which, it was already a miracle that he didn't break his bones on the spot. After sending that mutated beast flying, Zi Chen stared at the young man and said indifferently, "Are you going to scram on your own, or do you want me to help you? You're courting death." The young man flew into a rage. His hands formed seals again, and the four directions seal appeared again and smashed towards Zi Chen. Zi Chen retracted his right fist. This time, he changed to his left fist. Another punch came crashing down. With a loud bang, the four directions seal shattered. Zi Chen didn't slow down at all. He arrived in front of the young man in an instant and smashed down with another punch. Countless bolts of lightning bloomed on his fist, dazzling everyone's eyes. Seeing his attack being shattered so easily, the young man's pupils shrank. His opponent's strength had exceeded his expectations. But he wasn't willing to be outdone. His body lit up, and the image of a beast appeared behind him. His strength had clearly increased by a lot. He punched out, clearly intending to meet Zi Chen head-on. Ou Li shook his head and curled his lips. Even if you're a spoiled brat, shouldn't you at least have some self-awareness? What is this? When the others saw this scene, they weren't worried at all. Although the young man's aura was extraordinary, compared to Zi Chen, the difference wasn't small at all. In the sky, 2 explosions sounded, and countless bolts of lightning scattered in all directions. In just 2 punches, the young man was sent flying, coughing up blood. Those who had retreated far away all rushed forward, wanting to protect their young master. In the end, Zi Chen delivered another punch to each of them. His punches were both light and heavy, but they were just right. Everyone was sent flying, but no one died. None of them were fools. After spitting out blood, they acted as if they were seriously injured and didn't dare to come forward again. The other party clearly didn't have the intention to kill him. If he insisted on pestering the other party, not only would he be humiliated, the other party might even kill him if he lost his patience. They knew that their young master was very likely to be chosen by the sage Heavenly Mirror, which was why he had entered the sacred mountain. However, where did these people come from? How could they be so powerful? After being defeated in 2 punches, the young man was so ashamed that he couldn't show his face. With a face full of anger, he coldly said to Zi Chen, "Eat him." Behind them, a roar shook the heavens. That strange beast came again. Although it was sent flying by Zi Chen's punch, it wasn't injured and its momentum was still fierce. Zi Chen had seen how strong his opponent was, so he decided not to use his fists anymore. That was because its body was too hard. If he punched it a few times, the rebound force would be too much for him to handle. With a flash of light, a shield shining with lightning appeared in his left hand, and a lightning rod appeared in his right hand. The shield in his left hand and the staff in his right. Block and attack. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky, there was a thunderous explosion as the man and the beast fought fiercely. The exotic beast's strength was extremely strong. Every time it attacked, the shield in Zi Chen's left hand would tremble violently and be on the verge of collapsing. However, Zi Chen would follow up with a strike of his staff and repel the exotic beast. The young man's subordinates, who were pretending to be seriously injured, stared at the battle in the sky with their eyes wide open. They were completely evenly matched, and there was no clear winner. Is this guy still human? The young man's eyes widened as well. The emerald-eyed jade fire beast was his greatest trump card, and also the reason why he could enter the sacred mountains. Apart from its powerful physical body, its battle prowess was unparalleled. He never thought that it would be evenly matched with a random human soul he encountered on the side of the road. At this moment, the strange beast's entire body was like jade. The strength it displayed was becoming increasingly tyrannical. As for Zi Chen, he could only fight to a draw with the strange beast using combat techniques. It was impossible for him to defeat the strange beast because the strange beast's body was too strong. Bang! Bang! With 2 loud vibrations, the shield and rod shattered and the energy dissipated. Zi Chen retreated. A smile appeared on the young man's face. Compared to the blue-eyed jade fire beast, a human's physical body was ultimately his weakness, and so was his endurance. The blue-eyed jade fire beast, who thought it had gained the upper hand, moved forward again and swung its jade-like claws at Zi Chen's head. Pa! A long black rod blocked in front of it. This time, the rod didn't shatter. Because it was a real soul weapon, and it had a great background. In the next moment, the long rod lit up with rays of light, and the complicated patterns on it lit up as well. A powerful force emerged from it and forced the blue-eyed jade fire beast to retreat. Looking at the retreating opponent, Zi Chen smiled coldly. With a flash of his body, he followed up and struck down with his staff again. The long rod whizzed down and hit the head of the blue-eyed jade fire beast. The strange beast let out a painful roar and retreated in the air. Zi Chen continued to follow up, striking again and again with his rod. In the sky, the thunderous roars and lightning raged, and the blue-eyed jade fire beast was forced to retreat. With the Saint Spirit weapon and Zi Chen's powerful combat strength, there was no longer any suspense in this battle. One strike after another. The unique vibrating force of the fighting technique was transmitted into the blue-eyed jade fire beast's body, causing it to sway in the air. It couldn't even stand steadily. As for counterattacking, it was impossible. The young man's face immediately darkened. Obviously, he had provoked someone he shouldn't have. Just as his expression changed and he was thinking about how to deal with this, he heard Zi Chen's cold voice. Either die or scram. The young man hesitated for a moment, but at this moment, a ruthless killing intent emerged. Let's go. He was also very decisive. He turned around and left, flying into the distance. As for the blue-eyed jade fire beast, he couldn't care less about it. The others immediately followed and fled at an extremely fast speed. Obviously, they were worried that they would lose their lives here if they were too slow. Everyone ran away, leaving only the strange beast behind. At this moment, the jade-like light on its body was flickering and it could be beaten back to its original form at any time. Zi Chen looked at the strange beast and said indifferently, "I can give you a chance to live. Submit or die." Without giving the strange beast time to think, Zi Chen's left hand manifested an energy rod and the two merged together. A violent aura was emitted from the Saint Spirit weapon. This was an attack that could kill the Blood Crow King. Zi Chen glanced at the blue-eyed jade fire beast and the rod in his hand suddenly fell, leaving a clear rod mark in the air. With the threat of death, the blue-eyed jade fire beast's eyes were filled with fear. The rod fell and death approached. The struggle in the blue-eyed jade fire beast's eyes disappeared. Its body swayed and returned to its original form. The jade-like light on its body also disappeared. Then, its front legs went soft and it crawled in the air, showing a submissive posture. Life and death is up to fate. The descending rod's aura turned from violent to extremely calm. It hovered above the blue-eyed jade fire beast's head, motionless. A strong gust of wind whistled down and pressed the blue-eyed jade fire beast's body downwards. However, there was no longer the threat of death until its body landed on the ground. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Zi Chen's killing intent was too obvious, causing everyone to suspect that Zi Chen never intended to let it go. The blue-eyed jade fire beast slowly raised its head and looked at Zi Chen with fear in its eyes. Zi Chen looked at it and said, "Welcome to our team. Actually, you made the right choice because no matter what danger we face, we will not abandon our companions." The blue-eyed jade fire beast's eyes flickered. Zi Chen said, "Of course, you are not a companion yet. You are just a member of the team." Then, Zi Chen's figure landed. He looked at Oyu Li who was lazily leaning against the carriage and said, "Let's continue on our way." Oyu Li picked his ears and did not continue to bargain. He immediately drove the carriage and continued on. Zi Chen, on the other hand, returned to the carriage and became the coachman again. After a slight hesitation, the blue-eyed jade fire beast followed, but it stayed by Zi Chen's side. In the previous battle, Zi Chen had displayed a great deal of strength, but he had not been able to truly injure it. Of course, this was also because the staff had not landed on it at the end. Otherwise, it would have really died. As an exotic beast that could suppress a human soul expert, its intelligence was naturally extremely high. When its original owner decisively abandoned it, its mind had changed. For the rest of the journey, they did not encounter any more ignorant existences. They did not even encounter the young man who had fled before. It seemed that he had already rushed to the sacred mountain at full speed. At night, they finally had time to rest. Oyu Li stretched out his hand. Zi Chen unhappily threw a jar of Undrunk Immortal to him. Undrunk Immortal is a really good wine. When we pass by the next city, try to buy a few hundred jars. Oyu Li said with a smile, "Otherwise, we won't be able to drink it." "Didn't you say that there's only one Undrunk restaurant?" Zi Chen looked at Oyu Li. Oyu Li patted his head and said, "Look at my memory. It's really bad. I remember that one year, Undrunk Restaurant opened a branch. I just don't know if it's closed. Of course, if it's closed, just pretend I didn't say anything." Zi Chen ignored this fellow because he was afraid that he would not be able to resist beating him up. If he only used martial arts, Zi Chen did not have the confidence to defeat him. Noah had already lit the bonfire. When Oyu Li walked towards the bonfire, He turned back to look at the blue-eyed jade fire beast and said, "Watch the three of them." He was referring to the three strange beasts that were pulling the carriage. The blue-eyed jade fire beast lay to the side, motionless. The other three strange beasts did not dare to move either. The pressure of a superior made them obey all the orders of the blue-eyed jade fire beast unconditionally. The bonfire burned as the few of them sat together and chatted. Chapter 38-25. Zichen did not even bat an eyelid at the approaching hostile aura. The others' expressions did not change much either. Ou Li chuckled and said, "It's really lively today. Why don't we have another jar?" Zichen did not even look at Ou Li because he was afraid that he would not be able to hold himself back and attack Ou Li before they even started fighting. A dozen people appeared in the sky. They stood in the air, and the leader said indifferently, "Even thieves have morals. We only want money, not lives. Take out all the valuable items you have, and we can spare your lives. Don't worry, the Shishan brothers are famous for being righteous in this area." At this moment, the person beside him poked his arm and signaled to the leader with his eyes. The leader looked around and saw the three women on the other side of the bonfire. His eyes lit up and he said, "Other than the money, the women must be left behind too. Don't worry, the Shishan brothers will keep their word." The others let out strange laughter as they sized up the three women. Their eyes were burning with passion. The leader continued, "Don't worry, three beauties. We are only inviting you back as guests and have no other intentions. As long as you are obedient, you will enjoy endless glory and wealth in the future." Ou Li raised his head and looked at the scene with interest. Clearly, he only wanted to watch the show and did not care about anything else. Lan Guming and the others did not even bother with the other party. "Hey, what's the meaning of this? Are you really not taking the Shishan brothers seriously?" The leader's face showed a hint of anger. The others did not move. As a latecomer, Pang Chang felt a little apologetic and looked at Zichen. Zichen said softly, "You deal with it as you see fit." Pang Chang rose into the air and released the aura of the human soul realm. The leader smiled and said, "Interesting, but a human soul realm cultivator can't take a beating." Pang Chang ignored him and drew his sword. The sword light flew in another direction, and several ripples appeared there. A man who looked very similar to the leader appeared and blocked the sword with a saber. As for the leader from before, his face revealed a look of astonishment. He had embarrassed himself during the day, and if he embarrassed himself again at night, Pang Chang felt that he would not have the face to continue staying in this group. Therefore, he drew his sword with all his strength. Wang. His sword was unsheathed, and a sharp sword chi left a mark in the air, heading straight for a human soul realm cultivator. Feeling the power contained in the sword chi, the other party's expression changed, and he immediately retreated. Clearly, he did not dare to take this sword head-on. Then, Pang Chang slashed out a second time, and the others retreated. After retreating for nearly 1,000 feet, the leader said indifferently, "I wonder which mountain this hero came from. I hope you can leave your name." Pang Jie snorted coldly and said, "What? You want to settle the score now?" However, before the two brothers could speak, Zichen said, "If you don't want to die too miserably, I advise you to disperse. Of all the things a human soul can do, why do you have to learn how to rob others?" He added a few pieces of wood to the bonfire without even raising his head. 3,000 meters away, the Shishan brothers glanced at the bonfire. Then, one of them, who was either the older or younger brother, turned around and left without hesitation. The battle came to an end just like that. Pang Chang's figure descended from the sky. Looking at the silent group, he said somewhat awkwardly, "I saw that they didn't have any killing intent, so they didn't attack ruthlessly." Hearing this explanation, the others were slightly stunned, because they had never cared about such things. However, Ou Li chuckled and said, "People like you will die very quickly. It's hard to imagine how you reached the human soul realm." Zichen said, "Ignore him. It's fine as long as you have a clear conscience." Pang Chang nodded and sat to the side. If he was alone, he naturally did not need to explain too much. However, he was in the group now, so it was not good for him to make a decision that could harm everyone. Asterisk 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 Big brother, why should we retreat? If we don't do the first job well, it will affect our reputation and the morale of our brothers. The human soul who appeared in the open, the younger brother of the Shishan brothers, said unhappily, "The one with the sword does have some skills, but we brothers aren't bad either. It shouldn't be a problem to kill him if we work together." The older brother was the one who had been hiding in the dark and was forced out by Pang Chang. He said in a deep voice, "Our battle strength is indeed impressive when we work together, but the one with the sword isn't as easy to deal with as we thought. Other than that, the others haven't moved and look so calm. Maybe there's more than one human soul realm." The older brother sighed and said, "We've gotten off to a bad start. We met an iron plate on our first try. Could it be that the heavens are deliberately warning us not to do this business? After all, even the famous Bloodcrow King fell. It's said that the entire Bloodcrow army died, leaving no survivors. Big brother, what nonsense are you talking about? Where's your courage? Where's the courage we had when we set up the group? This is a test from the heavens. We can't give up." The younger brother said righteously, "Do you still remember the saying? You have to stand up from where you fell. Since we've lost face here, we'll find him here. We'll follow them in the dark until we find the right time to strike." The younger brother's eyes flashed. "This is called knowing yourself and your enemy to win 100 battles. We'll know their weakness and defeat them in one fell swoop." Then, the younger brother turned around and looked at the others, asking, "What do you think?" Everyone nodded, feeling that this was the truth. "All right, it's settled then. Asterisk 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 asterisk." As Zi Chen's group continued on their way, they realized that there were people following them in the dark. Even Zi Chen felt ashamed of their clumsy tracking methods. He knew who they were without looking. None of the human souls present were weak. Naturally, they could sense the presence of those people, but none of them cared. Because they weren't dangerous at all. 2 days later, the group encountered the second group of bandits. Pang Jie leaped into the air like the most competent bodyguard in the group. After knocking down all the bandits, he left with a swagger. The Shishan brothers looked at the departing group and then at the group of bandits who had been defeated in the distance. Many of them were wailing in pain and despair. One of them had even lost his clothes. The look in their eyes changed. The younger brother asked, "Are they our colleagues?" Because a person had jumped down from the carriage and used practiced movements and techniques to rob everyone clean, even including one of the bandits' robes, which were obviously defensive soul weapons. This made the younger brother mutter, "Who is this person? If he's really their colleague, what should we do?" Unexpectedly, at this moment, the elder brother's eyes lit up. He said excitedly, "Whether he's our colleague or not, we've struck gold this time." Struck gold? The younger brother was stunned. The others were also puzzled. The elder brother said, "Are you stupid? Think about it, what's their goal? They want to rob everyone, just like a mantis stalking a cicada, and we're the oriole hiding in the dark. After they rob all the bandits on this path, we'll destroy them. Isn't it the same as taking all the wealth on this path effortlessly?" Hearing the elder brother's words, the younger brother's eyes lit up. He immediately gave a thumbs up and said, "Elder brother, you're wise." The elder brother said proudly, "Otherwise, I'd be the leader of this group." Chapter 38-26. Zi Chen didn't know that he was being targeted once again. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. He glanced at the robe that Noah took off. The grade wasn't very high, and it was much worse than the Bloodcrow King's. However, this kind of thing was rare. Once they reached the next city, they would definitely be able to sell it for a good price. The blue-eyed jade fire beast had been following beside Zi Chen, but it couldn't understand some of its new master's actions. After listening to the conversations over the past few days, it knew everyone's names one by one. The one called Ou Li was a troublemaker. In human terms, he deserved a beating. The new master almost couldn't suppress his anger several times, but he never made a move. After seeing its new master's strength, it couldn't help but wonder if this Ou Li was even stronger than its new master. In addition, there was another old man called Old Tang. He didn't seem to have any strength, but every time it slowed down and was about to reach the carriage behind, an instinctive fear would arise in its heart. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Having lost his greatest reliance, entering the sacred mountain again was a huge joke for Chen Kai. Without the blue-eyed jade fire beast, the sacred mountain wouldn't care who he was. Therefore, he had to seek help. Not to mention what to do to the enemy, at the very least, he had to snatch back his blue-eyed jade fire beast. His original intention was to reach the sacred mountain and find a friend to ask for help. He didn't expect to meet a friend in less than 8 days. Yu Yi, a genius from the Yu family. He was an existence that would definitely be recognized by the sacred mountain. After seeing Chen Kai, he was a little surprised. To be able to meet on the road ahead was also a kind of fate. However, he quickly noticed that the blue-eyed jade fire beast that had been following Chen Kai was not by his side. "Brother Yu, please help me." Chen Kai didn't hold back. He directly stated his intention and his current situation. Hearing Chen Kai's words, Yu Yi's expression changed slightly. He was very surprised. "There's no one else from your family?" Speaking of this, Chen Kai was a little regretful. His family had arranged for experts to protect him, but he was in a hurry to come and didn't wait for them. He left without saying goodbye. But now, he didn't dare to go back the way he came, so he could only brace himself and move forward. In Yu Yi's group, there were more than 10 people. Some were in charge of his daily life, and some were guards. Among them, there was an old man wearing a black robe. He was very tall and very conspicuous. In addition to the old man, there was also a handsome young man standing beside the old man. He was chatting with the old man about something. Yu Yi looked back at the old man and asked, "Uncle Go, what do you think of this?" The tall old man turned around and said, "It's all up to the young master." Chen Kai hurriedly begged, "Brother Yu, please help me. I will definitely not forget your kindness." Yu Yi hugged Chen Kai's shoulder and said, "What are you talking about? You and I are brothers, why are we still talking about this?" Then, Yu Yi said, "Come, let me introduce you to my other good friend, Lei Chan." The young man named Lei Chan walked towards them. Yu Yi smiled and said, "He's the son of the Zhenyuan Chen family, Chen Kai. He's also my best brother." Lei Chan smiled at Chen Kai and nodded. This was how the two of them got to know each other. Yu Yi said, "Shall the 3 of us go and have a look? Let's see who dares to snatch young Master Chen Kai's things." Lei Chan said lightly, "Of course we have to go, but if only the 3 of us go, I'm afraid we will be defeated." Yu Yi asked in confusion, "What do you mean, Brother Lei? Can't the 3 of us deal with a few people in the human soul realm?" Lei Chan shook his head and said, "We are not afraid of them. But what if there is something wrong with that old man? Right now, those who are walking on this path are not easy to deal with. No matter how extraordinary we are, in front of an absolute realm, we will feel powerless." Yu Yi obviously understood what Lei Chan meant and nodded. This was not impossible. However, if Uncle Go followed them, it would obviously affect the progress of the team. The sage Heavenly Mirror was very famous, but it was also famous for its strange character. In order to help Chen Kai, what if they missed the opportunity? Yu Yi was a little embarrassed. Chen Kai, on the other hand, was anxious and looked at Lei Chan with some dissatisfaction. Lei Chan said, "How about this? Their goal is to go to the holy mountain after all. Let's slow down and wait for them to catch up. At that time, with Uncle Go holding the line, it won't be too late for us to take action." Yu Yi looked at Chen Kai apologetically. Chen Kai said, "That's fine, but what if they walk very slowly?" Lei Chan said with a smile, "No one who can get the news in advance and come to the holy mountain is a fool. No one is willing to miss such an opportunity. Moreover, as long as we wait, I believe that Brother Chen's family should also be here. At that time, with the strong joining forces, even if no accidents happen, Brother Chen can even ask for more of what you want." Chen Kai nodded suddenly and said, "Okay, let's do that. In addition to my blue-eyed jade fire beast, I will reserve one of the 3 beauties in advance." At this moment, a subordinate came to report, "Young master, a bandit stronghold has been found ahead." Yu Yi smiled coldly and said, "Let's go and practice." The team began to set off for the bandit stronghold. A moment later, the entire stronghold was dead silent. The smell of blood filled the air, and not a single person was left alive. Similar incidents continued to happen. Some bandits were destroyed, and some new bandits appeared, destroying one caravan after another. This path was filled with all kinds of dangers. Along the way, they would always encounter some ignorant people. When these people came looking for trouble, it was Pang Chang who dealt with them. While sparing their lives, they naturally couldn't let their wealth go. Noah, who still hadn't broken through, took on the role of a beauty and didn't let any wealth go. Sometimes, they would even deliberately take a detour and go to their base camp to see if there was anything valuable there. However, most of the time, these people's things were on their own. They just needed to clean it up. The Shishan brothers had been hiding in the dark with their dozen or so subordinates. They thought that they hid very well and were silently observing Zichen's group. The three beautiful women made them very envious. They couldn't wait to kidnap them and bring them to the mountain to make them their wives. However, the brothers thought that they were very shrewd, so they weren't in a hurry to make a move. Therefore, they passed by the next city. Zichen's group stayed in the city for a night. The Shishan brothers didn't dare to enter the city, but sent someone to follow them in the dark. When they learned that Zichen's group had bought nearly 100 jars of drunken immortal, they were so angry that they almost vomited blood. The older brother patted his chest, thinking that he had miscalculated. He didn't expect them to be so wasteful as to spend their blue crystal coins on such foreign things. What a waste, what a waste. The two brothers were furious, and the others were also filled with righteous indignation, as if Zichen was spending their blue crystal coins. However, after thinking about it, they decided not to make a move first. So far, only Pang Chang had made a move. The strength of the others was unknown, so they had to wait and see. After Zichen's group disappeared, the younger brother walked out from the dark and asked, "Big brother, don't you think that exotic beast looks a little familiar?" The older brother was still angry. He snorted and said, "Not only does it look familiar, I'm going to steal it. Don't worry, once we get it, it will be our shared mount." After following Zichen for half a month, they encountered another group.